So I want to welcome everyone today. How are ya? Welcome to Soup and Bread. And we want to welcome our online viewers. We're so happy to be able to offer this live stream for this class today. But we are so glad you're here live and in person because you get to taste the food. Sorry, guys, online. But anyway, I'm Sue Becker, one of the owners and founders here at Bread Beckers with my great team of helpers and friends and employees. And we just want to welcome you today to Bread Beckers. Anybody here for the very first time? Anybody? Yay! Well, I'm so glad you're here. You came with a friend. She drug you, right? No, you didn't come kicking and screaming, huh? All right. Well, this is always a fun class to do, especially in the wintertime. I don't think anything says comfort like a bowl of soup and hot bread, right? I was just thinking about it as I was putting my microphone on. I think soup and bread has nourished a weary traveler, cooked over a fireplace pit or a campfire or a wagon train it's one of those things that throughout history has been there, whether that's the way you cooked because you had a fire burning anyway just to stay warm. But like I said, I think nothing says comfort like a bowl of soup. You know, it's interesting, when I first did a class and I called it comfort foods, I looked up that word comfort, and in Latin, and any music people in here, piano people, you know that forte means loud, or with strength. Well, comfort means with strength. Com means with, and forte means strength. And so these foods are things that give us strength. Oftentimes they conjure up memories. Every Christmas when I make certain dishes that my mama made, makes me think of my mother, and I think that gives us all strength. I was thinking this morning and praying for you as I was getting ready, and one of the things I just thought I'd share this to encourage you. I don't want to get real long here, but we hear that verse in James that says, count it all joy when you face trials of any kind. Have y'all ever thought about that? Like you're supposed to go, woohoo, I'm so glad I'm going through this. This is so much fun. No, I don't think anyone could really do that, and I don't think God expects us to. But it literally, when I looked up that word count, it means to lead with. So that's very different than going, wow, I'm just really glad that I'm going through this, and you're supposed to think about all the wonderful things that this trial is. No, it means you lead with joy when you go through that trial. That's how you walk it out, knowing that God is going to bring you through. He promises us that. He says we're going to face trials of many kinds. Does that mean they're going to be easy? No, but we can lead with joy. And I just finished up Exodus yesterday. I read through the Bible every year. And when they built the tabernacle, they stationed the tribes in different areas, 3 on each side, north, south, east, and west. But guess who, when they took down the tabernacle, when the cloud of God moved and they had to march on, or even when they went into battle, do you know who went first? What tribe? Judah, which means praise. So that is a perfect picture of leading with joy, leading with praise. And that's who went out to battle first. And I always think of Paul and Silas when they were in prison. They started praying and the doors opened. So I just want to share that with you. So think about the trial you're going through today and lead with joy. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this glorious day that you've given us, and we just worship you, and we do count it joy, Lord. We are all, whether big or small, facing trials, Lord, each day, just living in this world. And Lord, help us to lead with joy, to lead with praise, to enter into your gates with thanksgiving in our hearts. And just thank you, Lord, again for the wonderful food that you've given us to nourish our bodies. And we just ask now in Jesus' name that everything we say and do could bring glory to your glorious name. Amen. All right, we have a great menu lined up for you today. We're going to start the morning with a delicious Haitian oatmeal. When I started going to Haiti, they served us one morning this delicious oatmeal, and even the oatmeal haters loved it because it tastes more like a vanilla custard. It is very, very delicious. So as I kept going and kept going, training them to make bread, I made a deal with the cooks. And I said, I will teach you how to make bread if you teach me how to make that oatmeal. And it's actually very quick and easy. You blend the oats with water and pour them in a hot pot, and they thicken right up. And then you add cinnamon and a little sweetener and just deliciousness. Star anise is a spice that grows there. It's a little star, and that's what helps to give it some of its distinctive flavor, not overbearing, but I hope you enjoy it. We've added a little fruit on top of it, some fresh fruit, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, and blackberries, I think, and for you to enjoy. So I hope you enjoy that as we start the morning. And then first up on our soup, we're going to do some spicy lentil and barley soup with a jalapeno cheddar bread. Then we're going to do turkey chili and sweet potatoes. I don't think any soup magazine, book, anywhere or any soup class could not have a chili recipe in it. So we will put a chili recipe. I know I've done this. I think I just did it in last year's class too, but it is now my go-to chili recipe. We're going to serve it with jalapeno cheddar corn muffins because I'm always talking about how delicious those are. I think I mention them every time I do a getting started class, that's one of the variations of the muffin recipe. Then we're going to do a sneaky broccoli and cheddar soup that it looks really orange and cheesy because of the sweet potatoes that are in it, but we do put cheese in, so it's very, very, very delicious. And then I started realizing that every recipe had cheese, and that's because us Beckers, we really like cheese. One of my granddaughters asked for dessert one time, and her mom said, "What do you want?" And she goes, "How about cheese?" And so that's kind of our jumping off place. And I'm like, well, I got to serve them something that doesn't have cheese in it. So I'm going to do a delicious beef and mushroom and barley soup that actually got in this soup class because last week I was floundering about what I wanted to make for dinner, and I was going to do French onion soup, went to the refrigerator, and there were some mushrooms that I really needed to use. And then I had a little bit of stew meat thawed out. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with this. And Brad and I both thought it was so delicious, and I just threw it together. I said, I have no idea what this is going to come out like. And we both thought it was so delicious that here it is in the class. How about that? And then I'm just going to do a crusty, actually a French bread today from my cookbook and show you some tricks about trying to get the best results you can with a French bread. All right, so let's get started. First, we're going to work on the French bread because, come back over here. We're going to work on the French bread first because it does something called a sponge. It has something called a sponge method in it. This recipe is found in my Essential Home Ground Flour book. It's not in the red book. There is a French bread recipe in the Bread Becker's recipe collection that I actually got out of the joy of cooking, which is supposed to be the ultimate in perfection, the joy of cooking. But as the years have gone by, I discovered that really French bread should kind of only have flour, water, salt, and yeast in it. The recipe that I kind of morphed to does have a little bit of honey and a tiny bit of oil. And when I say a little bit, a tablespoon of honey, a tablespoon of oil. But the secret to French bread, commercial French bread has very specific ovens that are constantly steaming that bread to give it the hard crust, but the soft inside. It's very difficult to duplicate that in residential ovens, but one of the secrets is doing a sponge method for part of the flour and the water, and I'm going to show you what that is because we talk about it in several places, and you hear people talk about it online, and getting that flour really, really hydrated before you add the rest of your ingredients. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's get started. We're going to actually mill some flour. I didn't know if there was anybody here that's never been to Bread Becker's that doesn't know what a mill looks like or that whole concept. It's funny, I actually shared the enrichment of white flour story on a Zoom class that I do on Mondays from people all over the world, and they had heard that I had just gone on the radio talking about, and they were like, "What did you talk about?" I'm like, "Bread," and they were like, Okay, will you tell us about this? So they were all quite intrigued, and I actually had to take my laptop and show them the mill. They were like, I don't even know what a mill looks like. And I'm like, yep, here it is. So here's the Wonder Mill. It's all ready to go. I'm just going to mill my flour that I'm going to use in the French bread. Now for French bread, because I want a very mild flavor, if I'm trying to duplicate or mimic store-bought French bread, you know, it's very white, okay? So I'm going to use hard white wheat. It is a yeast bread, so we want to use hard white. But certainly, if you want more flavor in your French bread, remember, recipes are just suggestions. It's your bread. You make it however you want. But the red wheat will give it a little nuttier flavor. And so you could certainly use that here. The secret is you must use, or the key is you must use a hard wheat. Either hard white, if you want more flavor, hard red, or a mixture of the two. Kamut also works very well here for French bread because there's not a lot of rise. We're not trying to get a real tall loaf. So that will work, or a combination of white and Kamut. I forgot to tell you, to enjoying with your Haitian oatmeal, you are going to have a little bit of rooibos vanilla chai tea. I'm sorry I serve it just about every winter class because it is my favorite hot tea. I don't do caffeine at all, so it's hard to find a chai that's not made with black tea. So our supplier, Adagio, makes a rooibos chai. And I just love it with a little cream and a little honey sweetener in there. And just know that it's no caffeine. If you do need caffeine, back there in the back is some coffee. I don't want you falling asleep on me before you won't, because the soup is going to be so delicious. But anyway, all right, so we're going to start by milling our hard white wheat. I need about 4 to 5 cups for this recipe. This is the fabulous French bread recipe. I changed the order slightly. I tried to put the recipes in the order that I was doing them, but I forgot that I had promised to do French bread in this class, so I had to rearrange just a little bit. So the French bread is what we're gonna start it, then we'll come over to the cheddar jalapeno bread, and then come back to the French bread. But so I need about 4 to 5 cups, so I'm gonna mill roughly 3 cups of grain, and I know that that will give me 4.5 cups of flour, and I think I've made this recipe enough. I doesn't use quite 5 cups. So I'm gonna turn the mill on. So we're going to get, well, we'll just wait till that finishes milling. Now the wonderful thing about the Wonder Mill, this will hold 8 cups of grain, which mills into about 12 cups of flour. Does it very fast, very fine flour. That's the capacity of the canister. The greatest thing, when you hear that pitch change, just walk over and turn the mill off, and this appliance just cleaned itself. How does that, isn't that exciting? So here's my freshly milled flour. I'm gonna get my mill move to the side right now. All right. So here is my freshly milled hard white wheat flour. Remember, this is a yeast bread, so we want to use hard wheat. Okay, so here I'm going to use my Anchorshroom mixer this morning to mix up the bread dough. I'll put my scraper here, my roller, pull the pin, spring-loaded arm, shoot that pin down the center of the roller, and lean that roller up, start with it up against the side of the bowl. That's gonna scrape, the roller's gonna mix. Largest non-commercial mixer sold in the world, and honestly the finest mixer. Very uniquely designed in that the motor is in the base, so I can add my flour and ingredients while it goes. Also the bowl turns instead of the beaters up here. Well, I mean, the roller's gonna turn, but it's from the bowl. So let's talk about gluten real quick. I don't wanna get too bogged down here because we got a lot of soups to make. I'm always nervous when I do a new class that I've never done before, and the soup classes and some of these other classes are new recipes, and I've never timed them out. I mean, I try to think about how the time's going, and I got started a little late this morning. I'm always nervous. Am I going to end on time? And I think this one's over at 1:30, right? So I don't have 4.5 hours. I only have 3.5. So, but let's talk about gluten real quick. Wheat is a very unique family of grains. Wheat, spelt, barley. I was about to say the Ezekiel mixture. Wheat, spelt, barley, kamut, rye. Those are in the wheat family. They have a unique genetic specific set of proteins that when you hydrate the flour that has the wheat flour, it forms this stretchy substance that is called gluten. You're hearing a lot about gluten, that it's this evil demon that somebody put in our wheat and genetically modified. That's just not true. First of all, wheat is not genetically modified. There is no genetically modified wheat sold commercially in this country or in products. Genetically modified seeds were developed, trials were done, but that was stopped and never approved for commercial use. So it's always been there. Think about it. Since the beginning of time, what grain has been used to make yeasted bread? By yeasted, that can be sourdough or our commercial yeast that we have today, because sourdough still has yeast in it, and that's what enables the bread to rise. What has been used? Wheat. You don't use corn to make yeast bread, right? You ever seen? Nope. Rice, millet, buckwheat, nope. None of those can make yeasted bread. That specific proteins that are there in wheat that form that stretchy substance when that flour is hydrated is very necessary to make yeast bread. As yeast feeds on the wheat and the carbohydrates that are there, it produces gas, carbon dioxide gas. Those stretchy strands of protein are critical to trap that carbon dioxide gas, and that's what enables yeast bread to rise. Without those proteins, you wouldn't get a good risen, fluffy loaf of yeast bread, okay? You would have something very dense. Corn, rice, things like that, they use baking powder. They're called quick breads because they can't develop that stretchy substance called gluten. I hope you feel a little better about gluten and that it's not an evil, bad guy. The problem is gluten, those proteins are in the white flour portion of the flour. So that is really the issue, not so much the proteins, but just that we are consuming lots and lots and lots of white flour, commercially processed flour that has all the bran and germ sifted out. So when you have a bread, say a French bread, what is very distinctive about French bread? The crusty crust, right? And the chew, that and bagels and pizza crust, you want that little bit of tug and pull. So that is usually use a higher gluten flour so that it will give you that stretch and that pull, that toughness. So a secret to developing that gluten, how did I tell you it develops? Hydrating that flour. So if I have a whole grain flour particularly, it's got bran and germ in there. It's not just gluten and starch or protein and starch, right? So I need to nudge it along to get that flour hydrated. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use what's called a sponge method. Now the sponge method, I'm going to take all the water, and I'm used warm water, not real hot water, but some warm water. I like to use 120, 110, 130 degree water, no hotter than that. I usually go a little cooler when I'm doing the sponge method because I don't have other ingredients to cool that water down, and I don't want to kill the yeast. But 120 degrees is the perfect temperature to better hydrate that flour. So what I do here is I use all of my water, and part of my flour. So I'm going to use half of my flour. I'm going to turn my mixer on, just kind of low speed. And this recipe does have you go ahead and put the honey in, when I'm doing, say if I were doing my basic bread that has a lot of oil and a lot of honey, I don't put the honey in. But since this only has a tablespoon, I'm just gonna go ahead and squeeze that honey in, and the yeast will like that. So that'll help the yeast along a little bit. I don't worry about measuring it real carefully because it just doesn't really matter that much. So I need one more half a cup, and again, it's approximate. You're using about half the flour that the recipe calls for. And then I'm gonna use my yeast. If you want to let this sit much longer, say 10, 12 hours, I mean, some recipes just have you mix the water and the flour and let it, it's called autolyse, for a longer time, then don't put the yeast in. But if you're gonna just let it autolyse for 10, 15 minutes, like we're gonna do here, you can go ahead and put the yeast in, and it actually likes it. It's like, woohoo, you're giving me food already. So, but you don't have to, it's not necessary. And now all I'm gonna do is just mix this until it's battery, till everything's mixed together, the water and the flour. And then I just let it sit. And you will see that when we come back to it in 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to be stretchy. So I'm gonna set my flour aside, and we are gonna go to our jalapeno bread while we wait on this to sponge. So this is a sponge method. All your water, half your flour, your yeast if you want to, okay? If you're gonna let it go longer, I wouldn't put the yeast in. If you wanna just 15, 20 minutes is usually enough with that warm water to hydrate the flour very well, okay? I just realized I forgot to put my apron on, and I really don't wanna be covered with flour by the end of the class. Any questions on the French bread? So that's sponging, okay? You already added the water. Yes, sir. I did put the 2 cups of water in right there at the beginning. So if you ever get like rye bread is lower protein, even though it is in the wheat family. It's a different makeup of proteins, so it doesn't form gluten readily. I mean, it does, but it's a lot weaker structure. Let me rephrase that. It's a little bit weaker structure, a little bit different, and you can over-knead rye. So this really helps to get that flour hydrated and get that gluten structure already forming. It gives you a little bit of advance there. Yep. Absolutely. In fact, I was going to until I kind of changed my order and thought I better do this. Her question is, can you make this in the zoharushi? Yes, you absolutely can. You know, that's the beauty of the zoharushi with your homemade setting. So if you know you want to do a sponge method, and Ashley and I both actually recommend it a lot with even the basic bread dough. Just put your water in there, half your flour and your yeast, and let it mix and just sit. If you're getting kind of not good rise on your loaves, the sponge method will really, really help. The wheat is really good right now. It's very high in protein, and I've not found that it was as necessary. But a few years ago, when my son still had the bakery, I mean, he was about to go nuts, because every shipment of wheat, the loaves would come out like this, and then the next shipment they'd be like this, and then the next shipment like this. And then I told him, I said, do the sponge method, and he started getting consistent rise, because you're getting that flour hydrated, and even though it's a little bit less protein, you're getting it good and hydrated and good gluten development. So back to your question about, sorry, that was a long answer for can you do it in the zoharushi. Yes, you can. So like when I made this French bread yesterday or the day before in the zoharushi, I just put my water in, half the flour and the yeast, a little squeeze of honey, and I just let it mix for 2 or 3 minutes and then stopped it. Now, I was right there in the kitchen and set a timer to walk over and stop it, but you could certainly set up your, well, no, I don't guess you could do that because you can't do 2 kneads. Just set a timer, walk over and turn it off in a couple of minutes. And then when it was, I set a timer for it to sit 15 or 20 minutes, then went back and just dumped the other ingredients in the zoharushi and hit start and let it complete its kneading cycle. Yep. Mm-hmm. It is too hot for the yeast, and that's why I put the flour in first. You don't want to sprinkle the yeast. So her question was, she's surprised that 120 is not too hot for the yeast. So if I were going to do it in the bread machine, make sure you put the water, the flour in, and then the yeast on top. But also remember, we're putting that 120-degree water in these cold metal bowls and pans, so it's going to already start bringing that temperature down. Yeast likes warm and moist. It doesn't like hot. So actually, about the hottest temperatures around 110, somewhere right in that 110, 120 window. So if you sprinkled the yeast right on top of the water, yeah, it might not like it if it were a full 120 degrees. But putting the flour in first, pouring it in a cold metal pan, and then letting the yeast mix in later. But yes, but we like using that water temperature because that gives us the best hydration and best gluten development. Yes, the question is, did I just use the quick dough cycle on my bread machine? Actually, no, I have I set my homemade cycle to one of them. If you don't know about the Zoharushi, so it has 15 cycles from basic bread to quick dough to quick bread to wheat bread to sourdough to jam to cakes. It has it all. But it also has a cycle that's called a homemade cycle. And in that homemade cycle, it's completely programmable, and it has 3 memories, 3 programmable settings. So I have one of my memories, everything is turned off but knead. And so when I dump everything in and hit start and choose that cycle and hit start, it just starts kneading. I don't need it to warm everything up. I don't really need it to rise, because it's going to rise whether it's a rise cycle or not if it's not, going to bake. So I just set my timer to remind me that I got dough rising in the bread machine. But typically when I do quick dough or when I do my memory setting that's just dough, I knead the dough. So, I need it like right now, like 10 minutes ago, actually. So I just dump everything in there because I'm probably going to pull it out, make hamburger buns or some pizza dough or something for dinner. So I need that dough. So I just knead it and give it to me. All right. So that's what I did this morning. I had it set on my memory cycle that's just knead. I dumped everything in. So this is the recipe for the jalapeno cheddar bread. Okay. I'm going to scoop my Zoharushi off the counter because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to actually, I think I can sit it right here. Nope, you know what? Yep, sit it down there. Okay, so this again, this is your jalapeno cheddar bread that we're going to make now. This is the basic bread dough that I used. Actually for this, I wanted a little more flavor than just hard white. So I did use 1 part hard red, 2 parts hard white. And the beauty of the Zoharushi, pretty much that basic recipe is 4.5 cups of flour. Gives me perfect dough. So I mill 3 cups of grain and just dump it all in. So I've got this ready. Now I am going to bake this bread in a cloche because we're going to serve this bread pretty early on in the class. So the cloche mimics a brick bread oven. And what you're going to do for the cloche is to get the base hot, and then we'll shape our loaves, let them rest for just a few minutes. Once this base is hot, put the loaves in, spritz, because this likes water. The unglazed lid here captures some of that moisture as it's evaporating off, and this bread will actually rise and bake all at the same time. So I call it my rule breaker, because you can certainly bake this bread on a conventional baking sheet, just let it rise before you bake it. But we're going to do it fast today. So that is my bread cloche that I'm going to let get hot. And I should have stuck it in there right before class, but usually I stick it in when my dough is kneading so that it gets good and hot and ready for my dough to go in it when it's done kneading and shaped. So I'm going to do just a little oil here on my rolling mat to keep the dough from sticking to my hands and to the mat. So this is the Bread Becker's basic bread dough recipe. I think there is a paddle in there somewhere. Yep, there it is. And so what I usually do once I pull my dough out, or even my baked loaf of bread, whatever I've done is whatever I have, I pull these paddles off and drop them in and then fill this with water so it's so easy to clean. All right, so here is my dough. This is a 2-pound loaf worth of dough. That basic bread dough makes 2 pounds of dough, fits perfectly nice in the zoharushi. And what was I going to say? And it will bake very nicely in the larger bread cloche here. Would you go on the back shelf and pull out one of the small cloches and bring it out? I forgot to show it. And so I'm just going to kind of stretch this dough a little bit, because I'm going to add my jalapenos and my cheddar. So there's the little 1 quart. You can just set it right there with that one. The little 1 quart bread cloche. And that will do half of a recipe. So if you know you want one nice pretty round loaf, a freeform type loaf, and bake that, then you could have the other half of this recipe to do dinner rolls or something else, or you could just half the recipe and only make half the amount of dough.
Actually, do you mind actually putting it up in front of you so that everyone on camera can see it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. So this is the little 1 pound bread cloche. All right. So we'll put that right there. I originally had thought about dividing this and cooking it in 2, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to cook it in 1 pot. So I love the new bread cloches that we have are by Eureka. They're made in Poland. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just take my 2 cups of sharp white cheddar. Just kind of spread it around, and I kind of poke it in there. And then these are fresh jalapeno peppers, and de-seeded and chopped pretty small. And I actually did more than I think I need, so I'm not going to put them all in there. And I'm not a real fan of hot food, but I found that these jalapenos weren't that hot. I'll use the rest in the chili. All right, so I'm just going to kind of poke this in. And then you probably could put the cheese in the zoharushi and let it knead it in there if you wanted to. But sometimes I don't want to make 2 loaves of jalapeno cheddar bread, so I want some of it to be for something else. So I'm just kind of kneading that in. You know what? Nope, I'm going to divide it. So you could totally just knead this into a round and then put the whole loaf like this in the cloche, the bread cloche, the 2-pound bread cloche. But what I've found is when this rises and it turns into a big loaf of bread, it's a lot harder to serve portions, because when you get to the center, that slice of bread's about this long, about that tall. So what I like to do is divide this into 4ths or 3rds. I'll actually divide it into 3rds since that's what I kind of already did. And then there's my cheese. That actually spreads my cheese out nicely too. I'm going to weigh my little balls of dough since I am cooking it all in the same pot. Okay, let's see. I think that one's a little small. Just want them all about the same size since they're cooking all together in the same dish. They're pretty close. Wow, imagine that. And so now I'm just going to knead these into a smooth ball, and that's also going to help get that cheese distributed. So that's why I kind of add it after it's made into dough. Like I said, I don't always want jalapeno cheddar bread out of the whole big loaf. And also, I think the dough kneads better if it doesn't have a lot of cheesy ingredients. And I don't want the cheese to melt in the warm water. Yes, ma'am. Okay, very good question. Her question is about when it says it's a 1 pound or 2 pound loaf, is that before it's baked or after? Whenever you see a recipe that says it makes a 2 pound loaf of bread or a 1 pound loaf of bread, or you see bread pans that say 1 pound loaf pan, 2 pound loaf pan, that is your finished bread. That's how much it weighs. So this is more than 2 pounds of dough. Even before I added the cheese, it's about 2.5 pounds of dough. But you're going to lose some moisture to the baking, so it's going to produce roughly a 2 pound loaf of bread. So when you have a bread pan that says 2 pound bread pan or a 1 pound bread pan or a 1.5 pounds, you always want to put in that pan about a 1/4 cup more dough than the pan says. So if it's a 1 pound pan, you're probably going to use about 1.25 pounds. If it's a 1.5 pound pan, you're going to use about 1.75 pounds. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, yeah. So always know that's your finished product. So that's why, like, if you weighed this dough, it'd probably weigh somewhere between 2.25 and 2.5 pounds of dough, but it'll finish up because you evaporate that moisture off. And that's actually how the cloche works so well, is as this is baking, moisture is evaporating off, and that moisture collects in the unglazed lid and kind of steams this bread. Remember, I talked about getting a nice crust comes from steam in the oven. And commercial ovens that bake French loaves, they have these special ovens that steam, or brick ovens that create that steamy atmosphere. So we've shaped these into 3 nice smooth balls of dough. And I was just kneading the cheese in and the peppers in. Didn't need to be kneaded. My bread machine did all of that for me. I'm just getting them shaped into smooth balls of dough so that they can be baked. I'm going to give the cloche a little bit more time to preheat. You want it really, really hot. And how this works is you get that cloche really hot. We'll drop the little balls of dough in the cloche while it's really hot. I'd like to spritz it with water because, like I said, it likes moisture. Put that lid on. Put it in a 375-degree oven. Most bread is baked, conventional pans, it'll be baked at about 350, but we put it up just a little bit. Well, what the cloche does is it protects that dough from the heat, the full heat of the oven, and it creates this warm atmosphere, and the dough rises really quickly. But then once it starts getting the heat of the oven to it, then it goes into bake. So it rises and bakes all in the same 35 minutes of time. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. Uh-huh. She's asking if she divides it in half, does the half recipe cook easily as well in the large cloche if that's what you had? I did a 1 pound loaf yesterday, and it didn't give it the support that it needed, so it didn't rise up that well. It still rose, and it's going to certainly be no different than baking it on a baking sheet. So I think, yes, you could easily do a 1 pound loaf in the 2 quart or the 2 pound, I keep calling it quart, 2 pound bread cloche as well. Okay, so I'm going to just scoot this to the side, and we're going to come back to our French loaves. And I want you to see what our sponging has done. Can you tell that it's all bubbly and just looks like almost like sourdough starter? But that's what we want because we put that yeast in there, the flour. And now what you're going to find when you do a sponge method is it, number one, because that gluten's developed, you don't have to knead it as long, and it's probably not going to take quite as much flour as the recipe calls for. Now, the flour right now is pretty high in protein, and I found that the recipe, I think I changed it in your handout. The recipe in my book called for 5 cups of flour. I did not find that this recipe needed that 5 cups of flour. Even in the bread machine, it needed only about 4 1/4. So I think I did change it, didn't I, in your handout to say 4 to 5 cups. Whereas in my book, the Essential Home Ground Flour book, it does say 5 cups. And I think that's because I used kamut when I was trying and developing this recipe, and kamut did take and need a little more flour. And I should have tried it out of hard white as well. But kamut is a very nice to make French bread. Like I said, it's not quite as strong a structure to get real high loaves that don't crumble a little bit, but it did very well for, I think, English muffins and French bread. Okay? All right, so looking at our recipe for the fabulous French bread. So we've got our water, we got our honey, we've got half our flour. Now we need to add our oil, the salt, and the rest of the flour. So I'm just going to pour a tablespoon of oil in, 2 teaspoons of salt, I'm going to stick my yeast back in the fridge before I go on so I don't forget. It really needs to be refrigerated. And now we're ready to add the rest of our flour. So I'm just going to turn the mixer on. And like I said, I kind of know that it only is going to take about two more cups of flour. In the bread machine, it was right at 4 cups is what I needed with the hard white wheat. The Ankershroom may tell me that it doesn't need that much flour. The beauty about the Ankershroom is it's going to need even a very, very, very soft dough. And that's also part of getting a good texture of your French bread. You want it a little softer dough. That's what gives you those airy holes inside. Like an English muffin, very wet dough. And that's what gives you those bubbles in you know what I'm talking about? The little craters that hold butter very well, if you, and butter and jam, right? So let's look at this. So this dough looks really nice to me. It's coming together. And the nice thing is, or one thing you want to remember when you're making bread dough is, especially with whole grain, is that you don't necessarily keep adding flour until it looks stiff. Because whole grain flour's got lots of bran in there. Do y'all know what? And lots of fiber. Do you know what fiber does? If you've ever heard my poopy talk, fiber is like a sponge. It's going to absorb liquids, right? And so even though your whole grain flour or your dough might look really wet, let it keep mixing because it will get drier looking, or drier is not the right word, but it will get smoother and more elastic and not so wet looking the longer it mixes and the longer it stands. Okay? So I'm going to just knead this about 5 minutes, and we will come back to it, but we're going to get our spicy lentil and barley soup going. So we'll have some soup here in a minute. Your question is, could I bake one of these one day and the other day? Yes, you would definitely want to put them in the refrigerator. Yeast doesn't like cold, so it will continue to grow and rise. So you would want to refrigerate it. It still will rise, but much more slowly. Okay? So yeah, you could do one and bake one. Okay, so next up, we're going to get that spicy lentil and barley soup going. Now, this is a recipe that I actually had at a small group meeting at church 20 years ago, and I completely forgot about it. I did it years ago in a soup class, but when I had it that night, every one of us there were like, can we have this recipe? Had so many levels of flavor that it was just amazing. So if you want to turn, I think it's page 6 in your handout, right? I added a recipe, the French bread, in the midst of my handout, so my numbers are not quite like yours. So it's very easy actually to put together, and so fast and easy in a pressure cooker. So let's get a pressure cooker up here and get this one going. Now you can certainly cook this conventionally. Just remember to get the barley cooked. It will probably take about an hour to simmer. So when we add the barley and the liquids, then if you're cooking this conventionally and not with a pressure cooker, it'll take about an hour. But I'm going to tell you something, there's nothing like pressure cookers when it comes to a nice soup meal. So that is one of the beauties of a soup. The chili that we're going to make next, instead of simmering that chili all day, we're going to cook it for 3 minutes, and it'll taste like it's been on the stove all day long. Now, a lot of times I do go ahead and make it early in the day, turn it off, and just let it sit there, and then reheat it when we're ready to use it, because it does meld, and it's a great soup to make the day ahead. So if you got Super Bowl party coming up or whatever, it's one of my favorites to make. At Christmas, all my kids we went to the zoo with grandkids and kids, and they all ended up back at our house. Well, I got up that morning before we left because I knew it was going to be late before we got home, and put on that chili, let it pressure for 3 minutes, and just let it turn off and sit there. And we walked in the door and it was all ready, and all I had to do was add some bread. But that was the chili. We're on spicy lentil and barley soup. Sorry, I'm jumping all around. I'm so excited about these soups. Yes. Yes, on Saturday. Okay, so the question is, what's the difference in that and, say, an Instapot? An Instapot is a brand of electric pressure cooker. The difference in what I'm going to use today, these are stovetop. I'm going to use my stove, bring the pressure up myself, set the timer, lower the temp, and turn it off when it's done. An electric pressure cooker will, once you put everything in there and you set the timer that you need it to pressure, then it will bring the pressure up, lower the heat to maintain that pressure, and then turn off when that time is up. So it's pretty much a set it and forget it and come back to it. The downside of it is it's not easy to release the pressure. In soups and stews, that's not such a big deal because most of the time I do what I'll explain in a minute, naturally release. So just let it turn off and sit there. But doing things that like vegetables and things that are only pressured 1 or 2 minutes, and then I want it out of there because I don't want it to keep cooking, and as long as there's pressure in there, it's continuing to cook. So that's the downside of an electric pressure cooker. But that's basically anything you can do on a stovetop pressure cooker, you can do in a electric one. It's funny, my daughter, my microphone's not working.
It's got static.
Oh, okay.
Cutting in and out, which is usually a sign that the battery.
Yeah, I wondered about that from the long class. So sorry. Can I?
No.
Don't talk. Okay. All right. Is it on? Okay. Let's look at our bread real quick here. Look at how it's nice and smooth, and see it stretching from just gently kneading. Okay. And it's really kind of ready. I'm going to let it knead just a few more minutes. Yeah. First of all, it was cold that day. So her question is, I started the chili that morning and just let it pressure and then just sit in the pot and walked out, left it, didn't refrigerate it necessarily. Okay, we were only gone, for the day, first of all. Also, it's very acid and it stays very hot for a long time in the pressure cooker. So it was actually still warm when we got home, but remember, it's very acid. I would have never done that with maybe a chicken soup that was just chicken and broth with no tomatoey stuff in it. Just depends. Like sometimes I'll put on chicken soup before I go to church, and then turn it off right as we walk out the door. I time it where it'll, well, I'm only gone for 2 hours. It's still piping hot when I come back. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends. But the chili was perfectly fine to sit there in my cool kitchen, But yeah, if it's acid, you're not as, if it's, got a lot of tomato, it's a lot more safe. Yeah, all right. Let me get a pressure cooker and let's get our spicy. We were supposed to be eating in 30 minutes, and I don't think that's going to happen. So now I got to gain some time here. All right. So we're going to do our spicy lentil and barley soup. And like I said, I had this at a church meeting one night, and we were all like, what is that soup? It's so delicious. Now I'm just going to tell you, this soup is delicious with plain oil and no olive oils or no olive spices. But I'm also going to tell you, the infused oils add another level of seasoning and flavoring to that. So enjoy, but just know this isn't an olive class, but it's very hard for me not to use them because they make anything I have been making 10 times better. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the Fiesta Spice or infused oil, and you could certainly, like I said, just use your good Agrilia olive oil that we sell that you're making your bread with. That's just fine, but this does give it a little flavor. Caramelized garlic would be good here if you're using that. I need to get these in the oven soon. All right, so I'm gonna, this is my turkey sausage, yep. And those of you that have the red Bread Becker's recipe collection, this is the turkey sausage that's in the recipe collection. It's just ground turkey seasoned with, all of a sudden I'm like, I hope I got the right turkey. Seasoned with some sage, some Italian seasoning, and so I make my own flavoring here. You could certainly buy turkey sausage that's already seasoned, Italian. You could even use lengths of sausage and cut the casing and break them open, however you want to do it. But I just buy, like I said, ground turkey and just season it up. And to be honest, this says to brown this sausage and take it out. I don't think I've ever done that. I think I've left it right in there. So we're going to do that today. I don't know. I don't think it will hurt this, not one little bit, and it shortens a step. So I'm going to go ahead and put the onions in. I am doubling this recipe, so you're going to see me add a lot. That's a lot of onion. Those onions were big. A little bit of a core. I like to cut out steps if I can. And maybe I did take the sausage out. I never remember. I saw that in the directions. I'm like, I don't remember doing that. So I'm not. And we're going to hope it comes out. And it will. Yes, ma'am. I used ground turkey that I made my own turkey sausage, okay? So this is turkey sausage, not just ground turkey. That's why you saw me quick look back and make sure I got the right turkey, because I've got ground turkey that I'm gonna use for the chili that's not turkey sausage. But what this is, it was a pound of ground turkey that I put sage, Italian seasoning, salt and pepper, and I mixed it up myself and made my own turkey sausage. This is in the red book. It's on page 24, okay? And it's been there forever. If you've come to a getting started class, it's the same turkey that we make the sausage bread, okay? And I use it a lot. If anything ever calls for turkey sausage, that's what I do. So we just want to get this browned. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic, get these good seasonings going. And heck, I'm going to go ahead and put this onion in. Do y'all do that? Like, that looks like enough, but then guess what? That would rot in the refrigerator. Got to believe that was 2 onions because I'm doubling it. All right. Now we'll mince some fresh garlic. This, yes, I'm sorry, since it's not a pressure cooking class, I forget to tell you what I'm doing here. So this is a Fissler line of pressure cookers, and this is an 8-liter pot. Can make a big pot of soup, and I didn't think the 6-liter would quite hold a double. I think it would possibly hold a single recipe, but since this is a double. So this is an 8-liter pressure cooker. This is a big daddy. We have a bigger one, the 10-liter, but this one fit my family when all my kids were, you know, growing up. This fit us very well. And I'm just going to set this aside because I'm about to use that garlic press again. Now, this is going to have barley and lentils and black beans in it. And you want to use hulled barley, which is what we sell. And because pearled barley, which is often what's called for in soups, cooks faster. That's why it's called for that. But they've polished the bran off. So it is basically like white flour or white rice, whatever. So they've polished that bran off. Whoops. I'm just wiggling this pot all around and it was saying nope. So I'm going to take my barley, and this is 2/3 of a cup because I'm doubling it. Go ahead and sprinkle it in and let it get toasty right along with the onions and the garlic. And we just want those onions to get softened. If you're cooking this more conventionally, then I would I would maybe saute the onions a little bit more, let them get a little bit softer. But the pressure cooker is going to soften most anything that's in there while it's cooking the barley. All right. Now we're going to add the broth. And see, I just think that sausage in there, cooking in there, is going to give it nice flavor while it's cooking. So, however you want to do it. Two quarts of broth. And I do love the Imagine chicken broth. When you're cooking something like this, that's got so many other flavors there, and it's not really the broth that's the main attraction. I think any brand of, I use organic, of chicken broth is great. But look at the Imagine chicken broth. I want you to look at the difference. Well, you can see when I pour it out, it's not like any other broth out there. Most of them are very, very, very clear. So the Imagine brand is worth a little bit extra money. Like I said, if for this dish, there's so many other flavors here that it's not as critical, but the Imagine just has a little more richness to it. And I don't sell it, but I like it. All right, so we're going to add our cilantro. How much cilantro? That was 2 quarts. Oh, you are so very right. Huh. I wondered why I had all those quarts of broth there, and I'm like, yeah, I will go get them. Can you, on the back, Teresa, back here on the back shelf, actually right around here, should be 2 more quarts of chicken broth. We're going to hope. I think I moved it. Yeah, I had 4 back there, but my broccoli and cheddar soup called for 2. Yep. Thank you so very much for calling that out. I knew I had 4 there for a reason, but I grabbed them for something else. Okay, we're going to put our lentils in. 2 cups of lentils because we're doubling it. And these are organic lentils that we sell here. Lentils are so good for you. And I already put the barley in. And now we need to slide our chicken breast in. And I just got tenders, but whatever. And if you like dark meat chicken, whatever kind of chicken you want here. Yay! Thank you so very much. Hallelujah that I had it. I think I actually bought it and then put it back there because I was like, why do I need all this chicken broth? Yep, and I think I was going to do this in a 10-liter. Yeah. We'll do it. I think all I got to add is a lot of beans in a minute. Okay. The question is, has anyone ever done bone broth in the pressure cookers? Yes, you can certainly do bone broth. You know what? There we go. And I think when I go to add the beans and everything, I am going to have to put this in a bigger pot, so have fun with that. We'll change it to the 10-liter. All right? That's okay. We'll do it later. We'll let it cook for now. Let me make sure I didn't overfill it. You know what? We're going to do the 10-liter right now. Mm-hmm. Yes. You want to shut those for me? All right. Yeah. I knew I had the 10-liter. See, I changed my whole plan, and I tell you what. Here. There we go. Sit that there. Here we go. There's the 10-liter. That's a real big guy. You know what? I did this wrong. You pick that up, and I'm going to set this on there. There you go. Can you pour it? Ooh. That's okay. I don't want it to splash on you. There we go. Get most of that in, and then we'll start scraping. Whoop. Here. Hang on. That's okay. There we go. I got it now. Are you sure? Yep. Nothing like live TV. I think that's why most cooking shows are not live, don't you think? This is much more fun. Me and pots and blenders don't always go well together. I have exploded blenders. But I couldn't decide, and yesterday didn't turn out the way I had hoped, and so I actually had planned to do a single recipe yesterday to see exactly how much it made if a single was going to be enough. You know what? And I need this washed and put back over there. It might be hot. Yeah, grab it. Mm-hmm. So, perfect. Now, look, we got plenty of room. But anyway, so I really thought the 8-liter was going to be enough. It really makes a lot of soup, so you might not need to double it. So even if you have a crowd, we're going to slide this to the side, and we're going to put it on high heat to bring the pressure up. These are Fissler pressure cookers. They have some great safety features. The lid locks automatically into place. It won't build pressure until the lid is locked completely into place, but that happens automatically once you shut it. And then it won't, when you start it on high heat, and then this pressure indicator will start rising. Once it gets to the second ring, we will adjust the heat to maintain that pressure. And usually that can go down to pretty medium low to even low, depending on how much food is in the pot. Once you've got it, the pressure, that's when you start the time, okay? So the fact that I doubled this recipe it does not mean that it takes longer to cook. It just may take longer to come up to pressure. Does that make sense? So pressure cooking kind of like not real sensitive to how much you have in there. It's just, it may take longer to come up to pressure. I'm gonna actually scoot this to the back because it may take a few minutes to come up to pressure, and I have a burner back here because I don't think we need to stand here and watch this pot. Okay? All right, so let me scoot it back. So I've got it on high heat. I'm going to move this burner out of my way for just a minute. And we're going to go back to our bread. This went way longer than it needed to rest, but I'm going to pull my cloche out of the oven and get that bread cooking, baking. Hot base. And we're just going to set these nice little, actually they're perfect. The cold cheese kind of slowed that rise time down a little bit. I want you to notice how big these little balls of bread dough are. Now the cheese gives it a little more stiffness. If it were just plain bread dough, it would be a little more delicate there. I'm going to do a little spritz with some water. Put my lid on. And you've just picked up the cold lid. Remember, the base is hot. That's the only hard thing about using the cloche. Remember that base is hot, because you just put a cold lid on and you sometimes forget and ask me how I know. No, don't. So we've got 375 degree oven, and we're going to set the timer for 35 minutes. Say that again. Nope, you don't need to grease the cloches. They're just fine. Yep, no grease. Right. He's saying he has a cloche that the bottom is flat and the lid is a dome, and that's the Emile Henry. We sell that as well. It's a great cloche. And that's the one we started with and learned about cloches from. It does a beautiful job of baking bread. And that's what I still have at home. So I use it just about every week to bake bread, particularly for church, because it's ready in an hour from milling to on the table. The upside of these types of cloches, number one, the price. They're they're more economical, but also you can bake in this. You can use this as a stew pot. If you've ever cooked in clay, they make wonderfully tender roasted chicken or whatever. So you can use it as a baking pot as well. But we still love the Emile Henry. Is a great company made in France. No lead, no harsh chemicals in the cloche. Still in the same family since 1855, I think, or 1850, something like that. Yes, we sell these pastry mats, which I love. I love how big they are. I love the design of it. I love that it was designed by a mom, and it's got your pie dough guides here. It's designed, I think she's a cookie baker, and she designed it really for pie dough and cookie dough, and it also has these guides that if you're needing to roll your dough like 1/4 inch, you put your guides here, you put your cookie dough here, you fold the mat over it, and you roll your dough, and that gives you the exact thickness of your dough that you need. Also, though, sometimes I'm doing like that, I was able to shift my bread dough over to the side. Also, it's got your graduations, your 1-inch graduations here, and that's the perfect size for a cinnamon roll. So I'll roll up my dough, slide it to the edge, and then just take my scraper that you saw me use and just divide my dough. It is silicone. You don't want to use a sharp knife, but also I could have put the cloche right on here. They are heat resistant, so I could have set the cloche right here. I am going to spray this because I don't think that's a USA pan. we have some old brands. I need to switch them out. So I'm going to put a little oil here. The USA pans require no greasing at all. So my this has rested about, 15 minutes or so. I think it turned off. So I'm going to go ahead and shape it and get it rising a little bit as a loaf. Let's take my scraper and scrape that dough off out of there. You're going to love this chili recipe. Like I said, it takes 3 minutes to pressure, and then I usually let it naturally release.
You're talking about this spicy lentil barley soup, aren't you?
Spicy lentil barley soup is what we just put on.
What are you talking about chili?
Well, I know I keep talking about the chili because I really like the chili. Sorry. The spicy lentil barley soup is what we just put on. It's back there pressuring. But we're going to get to the chili in just a minute, and you're going to love it. Sorry. See, and like I said, I did it in last year's class, and I usually don't like to do recipes that close together that I just did. Were any of y'all here in last year's soup class? Okay, yeah. All right, well, good then. So I'm glad that y'all haven't had it before. So, but you can't do a soup class without a chili. Like I said, any cookbook for soup or any magazine is gonna have a few chili recipes, usually a white bean chili or whatever. So see, I'm talking about that chili recipe again. So I was like, I've got to have this. So this is our French bread loaf, our dough. You see it's a little softer and wetter, and that's gonna give us a nice inside and a crusty outside. So I am actually dividing this into 3 loaves, and I'm going to make 3 baguettes. You could easily do a bigger French loaf if you want. So this was the sponge bread, yes. So again, I'm just going to weigh these to see if I've got about the same size loaf here for each one, because I'm going to bake them all at the same time. Oh, wow, you couldn't get any better than that. 12 ounces each. Now, here's how I'm going to shape my French loaves. And there's plenty of ways to do it. Some people roll it out. I honestly just start folding it over itself and then just start rolling. Got a little thin there in the center. There should be a loaf of French bread over there if you want to bring it, and I'll show them my finished loaf from yesterday. So that's my finished loaf of French bread. And that's what I made the croutons out of that you're going to have on the broccoli cheddar soup. Yes, you can. If you make this with spelt, what's the difference in the flour content? It probably will take a little more flour. Spelt has a lot more moisture than your hard white or your hard red. So might take a little more flour there. I usually find it takes almost a cup more. Well, no, that's in the basic recipe. This would probably just have to judge it by what the dough looks like. And then this one's not kneaded a long time, so I think you'll be fine. They're still kneading it like about 5 minutes. But I would definitely do the sponge method if you're using spelt, and that will help the spelt develop the gluten. It's a little weaker protein structure, a little different protein, even though it's in the wheat family, little different protein structure there, okay? Yes? I think it's 14 or higher. To be a hard wheat, it needs to be about 14 or higher. Okay, so there are my loaves. These are going to rise now because I'm not using a cloche for this. I'm just using my 3-channel baguette pan. Now what I'm going to do here to get the lovely design, hang on. This is a wonderful tool. It is a ceramic bread slicing knife. It is sharp and it does a very nice job. It also does a very nice job of scoring my loaves. So I'm going to do a deep cut here. It's a little softer than my dough was yesterday, so it's not scoring quite as well. Secret to French loaves, crusty crust, water. So I spritz them here while they're rising. I'm going to spritz again before I put them in the oven, and I typically even spritz them again while they're baking, okay? So we're just going to set those aside, let them rise, rest 10 or 15 minutes. I've got a hot oven here, going to bake them at 450, is that right? Yeah, 425. Yep. I think we should make chili. That's what I'm thinking. And a great way to clean this mat is just, and this is why I love my little spritzing bottles. I've got one with oil and one with water. I have a feeling they're made for oil and vinegar, but from baking, it's great for oil and water. You can see I used oil on my mat. It's a little cleaner. I certainly could have used flour if that's what you're used to. And when I have a softer dough, sometimes I will use flour. It's a little hard to work with the oil. But then the water, the little water bottle, first of all, spritz my loaves with it, but then this helps me to clean my mat. So I just use the water, scrape up any dough pieces, if there's any. I got a little carried away with the water, didn't need quite that much. And then just get a rag and wipe it up. It's a lot easier than taking it to a sink and kind of fumbling around with the mat, like what do you do with it? It's just everywhere. And then just let this dry. So there we go, so easy to clean up. All right, chili time. Now this recipe is so fast and easy. If you're not going to let it naturally release, I would start the muffins first because they'll take longer than the chili will. But I like to, if I can and if I have time, anytime I'm pressure cooking soups, I really like to just cook them, let it naturally release, and it stays plenty hot. All right, let's bring our burner back up. No, we used to, and then Fissler quit making them. So these are induction burners. You can certainly use these pressure cookers on electric, gas, whatever. You don't have to have an induction burner. It's just that's what I have. We don't have a stovetop. Chili. We're going to make chili. And I have doubled this recipe in an 8-liter stock pot, so it should be just fine. All right, let's get it hot. Again, I'm going to use my Fiesta Spice olive oil just because. Can certainly use just some olive oil. If you have not tried the Olivelli infused oils and vinegars, I highly recommend it. They have changed our lives here at Bread Bakers because we love these oils and vinegars. Melanie. In that top drawer, I think, is my can opener where we took it on the road. Brad and I did a road trip last week, an event on the road, and should be red handle. No, don't see it. Oh, maybe I got it out, but I don't remember getting it. Oh, I found it. Never mind. It was turned sideways all in the back. Do we sell the oils and spices online? Yes, we do. I think you can buy everything online that you can buy in our store. Everything is there. Yep. Okay, so the question is, what's the difference in dark ground turkey and just regular ground turkey? There is turkey that is not, there's light turkey that's just the turkey breast that's ground, and then there's turkey that's the whole turkey that has the dark meat and the light meat all together. So it's your preference, really, but this recipe was submitted when we did our recipe contest, or we were going to do a recipe contest back in 2019. And if you see the little note at the top, when Christy submitted this, she said, "This may not sound unique, but it's one of the best chilies I have ever had." And I'm just going to tell you, we tried it, we loved it, and everywhere I take it, everyone said, "This is the best chili I've ever had." I don't know what the sweet potatoes do to it or what. Now, when I made it at Christmas for our family, I didn't have but 1 pound of ground turkey. I did have some ground beef, so I did throw the ground beef in there. But most of the time, I make it right by the recipe with the ground turkey. But the dark versus the light, or dark, like I said, has all the dark and light meat in it. You can get ground turkey breast, and it's drier. I will tell you that. It doesn't have quite the flavor that the dark does, okay? And it won't be labeled dark in the store. It'll just say ground turkey. The other will be labeled ground turkey breast, okay? And there's a difference. I mean, obviously, besides the obvious, there is a difference, because I've gotten the ground turkey breast by mistake and made my turkey sausage out of it, and I was like, why is this dry? Why does it not have the flavor, that I'm looking for? So, yeah. So that's it. Yep, it's there. Okay, so we're going to just begin to brown this, and kind of like I did with the spicy lentil soup, I'm going to go ahead and put my onions in and let them be browning right along here. And now I want to tell you a trick about flavorful chili, okay? You want to add your spices here while you're browning in the oil. Your aromatic spices like chili powder, cumin, those garlic, the flavor components are oil soluble. So that's why you want to put them in the fat instead of just adding your chili powder at the end with your liquids and everything. Go ahead and put them in your oil here while you're browning your meat, okay? I'm like, where did this go? Okay, so this calls for Mexican chili powder and cumin, which you certainly can use. But at Christmas, when I went to make this, I didn't have chili powder. And I'm like, oh dear, this was my plan. And went to the cabinet and the cupboard was bare. So I used our Olivelli sweet smoked chili rub, which has smoked paprika and chili powder, cumin, ginger, oregano, coriander, red bell pepper, garlic, onion, everything you want. And so I used it instead, and I really loved the chili. So, but just know you can make it right by the recipe. But this is Olivelli's sweet smoked chili rub. It is delicious on meat. We have the option as retailers to buy in bulk. There's 3 main ones that I have bulk, and it's this one, sweet smoked chili rub, the coffee rub, and the shiitake, the one I'm going to use on the beef and barley. Those are, and the Mediterranean. I have 4. 4 that are my favorite go-tos. I'm actually going to put 1 more tablespoon, so a tablespoon and a half, because this has some other things besides chili powder. Now, even though it does have cumin, I cut the cumin in half, and I am going to put a little bit of cumin in there. But I cut it in half of what the recipe called for, because my sweet smoked chili rub has that in it. Little pinch of clove. I think I didn't have that at Christmas either. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. You're like, okay, so you really didn't make this recipe at all. Yes, I did. Remember, it's just suggestions. Our jalapenos, I'm going to put in. Those are from the bread. I'm just going to add that. And even with the jalapenos, I don't think it makes this too hot. I don't love hot food. You can add just half if you want, and I think that's what I typically do, so I may not add all of these. I think I just add 1 jalapeno for the whole rest, for when I double it. So I'll just leave that. So now I am going to end up with a little container of, okay. So this is almost there. And for the salt, I'm going to use the cumin infused salt from Olivelli. Again, can certainly just use salt, Redmond's real salt. And a little bit of black pepper. Mince our garlic. So funny, my hair really absorbs smells, like never mind. Like when I go to the gas station, I can really smell smells of stuff. I went home after Saturday's class and sauteing all those onions and stuff, and I was like, laid down in bed, I'm like, I smell like a restaurant. You know, it was so funny. Y'all didn't really want to know that, but anyway. So this morning when I was getting ready for class, I kept trying to kind of stand back, but it's not going to happen. So when someone hugs me tonight at church, they're going to smell garlic and onion and yeah. Okie doke. Now, I think what makes this so delicious is our sweet potatoes. And I really meant to chop them a little smaller, but you know what? It's what we're getting today. And then it calls for a can of the diced tomatoes, and I use the fire roasted. And just so you know, I am doubling to this. This is a 28-ounce can, so close enough to the 30-ounce. I actually bought enough for doubling these cans until I got home from the store and realized this was double. So I now have a bunch of cans of tomato sauce. Pull this up. And I enjoy the fire roasted. I don't think they're too hot, but I think they add a nice flavor to this. I think I put another can in. I'm going to. That just doesn't look like enough liquid, so I would double that can there. Can you see I'm not really even following this recipe very well? They're just suggestions. That is correct. I remember at Christmas I was like, this just doesn't seem like enough liquid. I think when you double it, it needs the extra. All right. I still got to add the beans. Now, I put a guideline for cooking your own beans. So I've already done that. I cooked kidney beans, or your typical chili bean. So I did soak these overnight and cook them for 15 minutes in the pressure cooker. And there is the equivalent of canned beans. So they are cooled, so I'm just gonna, and I go ahead and add some liquid. It does say drained, but I add some of the liquid. And you can see there down at the bottom, a 15-ounce can is roughly a cup and a half of beans. So I might add some of these after it's done, because I'm getting, again, close to maximum capacity. I was so happy when Sunday, we eat Wednesday night. We have food, and it's different theme every week, and they tell us on Sunday what it is. I was so happy that they picked soup, because I'm like, I'm going to have this ready. Whatever's left over, we might get a little pot of this and a little pot of that tonight, but they will love it. Yep, I do, and it's coming up. I already checked it. That lid goes to this. I'm going to just leave that right there, and I'm going to add some beans after this, because I am capacity there. If you hear that sound, this pressure cooker is up to pressure. I know you can't see where you are, but it's at the second white ring. It's so heavy, I'm not going to pull it back up there to show you. But now is where I would lower the heat just to maintain that pressure. And here's where my time starts, okay? So I'm going to cook this 20 minutes to get that barley done. Okay. All right. This guy is ready to come up to pressure. Make sure that gasket's in. All right. So we will scoot this over, and we will get our muffins going. Our French bread obviously is rising. It's a little cool, so I'm going to let it go just a little bit longer, but you can tell it's light looking. It's airy looking, but I'm going to let it go just a little bit more. But it's pretty double, wouldn't you say? Yeah? Well, let's go ahead and put it in then. How about that? I'm going to spritz it. And I'm going to put it in 425 degrees. Okay. Question? Where's the question? Oh, sorry, ma'am. No, that is for the beans. So here, we lock the lid into place, and we brought the pressure up to high, or when it comes up, we'll reduce the heat to maintain the pressure. This chili's only going to cook 3 or 4 minutes. Those sweet potatoes will get completely done, and everything will meld. Pressure intensifies flavors. It pushes the flavors into the meat or whatever's in there. So that's why this is going to taste like it's been simmering all day. So what these times are at the bottom are for your beans. Then I would put all this on. Everything's done except the sweet potatoes, and just let it simmer like you normally do for a couple hours, or till the sweet potatoes are done. Probably won't take a couple hours, but like you normally would cook chili, just put it on and cover it and let it simmer. All right? But chili is like I said, you're not going to have a soup class or a soup book that doesn't have a chili recipe in it, and everybody can vary it to their taste. You want more hot, use different pepper. If you you know, use a habanero or something like that that's a little hotter. Yes? The Mexican chili powder, her question, big difference between chili powder and Mexican chili powder. I'm not sure about that. I think the Mexican chili powder is a little bit hotter. I know that I bought adobo chili powder by mistake. It's hot. It's hot. I'll show you. I'm sorry, not adobo, chipotle chili powder. And this was hotter, but this is what, I couldn't find anything labeled Mexican chili powder, so this is what I assumed it was talking about. So this is what I used, and it is a little hotter because it's made with a different chili pepper. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think, so I'm sorry, but that's what I found because I couldn't find anything labeled Mexican chili powder. Yeah, it's a different recipe. The Bread Becker's book has milk, has some other sweeteners and oil in it. This one's a little different recipe. Yep. But you could do it, I think, at home. Yeah, you could do it. Smells like, yeah. All right. Okay, so now let's go to our yummy corn muffins. You know what? I just realized I need to get that mill back out. I milled soft wheat flour because I was thinking muffins, and we're not going to make them out of soft wheat, so we're going to have to mill some corn. I thought I was done with the mill, and I'm glad I caught that. And you could certainly use half corn flour and half regular flour, but I like to use all corn. So let's see if I've got some corn in my cabinet here. Melanie, would you go get me a 2-pound bag of white corn? I got a little bit. We'll mill that first. And again, about a cup of grain makes about a cup and a half of flour. I just milled that and measured that this morning thinking, oh, it's muffins. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't. That's the thing. This is white corn, and the blue label means that it's not necessary, it's not certified organic, but it's certified non-GMO, okay? And so for this recipe, I like to use white corn. If I were making a traditional southern cornbread, just plain cornbread, which usually goes great with chili, then I would probably use a yellow corn. But because I'm adding the cheese and the peppers again, I want to taste those things, and the yellow corn has so much flavor, it would probably kind of mask that flavor. So I'm going to see how much more I need here. So if when you're milling corn, it may jiggle around like you saw it, but it's just because it's a bigger kernel of grain. If you ever have milled corn and then when you go to turn this coarseness fineness dial and it won't turn, jiggle it. That means there's a little kernel of corn still stuck there, and mine wouldn't turn back over to fine, and so I just turned it on and jiggled it. If that doesn't work, unplug it, turn it on its side, and I say whomp it. Just give it a little bump like that, and then turn it back on and jiggle it. It just means a kernel of corn got stuck right there in that opening. So you didn't hurt your mill or anything like that. But a lot of times people call like, my mill won't mill, it's just making a whining sound and the grain won't go in, and it's because the kernel of corn is stuck there and it's got that little opening for the grain to drop in to, it's keeping it from dropping down in. So just a little aside there. All right, so there is my freshly ground corn flour. I'll turn this down some more, it's still hissing. I turned it on the coarsest setting, yes. So look at this beautiful corn flour. Now, someone said one time, that is not cornmeal, that is corn flour. And yes, I would agree. If you want a little grittier flour, grainier, more like cornmeal, secret is use popcorn. Because popcorn is so compact, there's not as much floury part of that seed as there is in your this is called field corn or dent corn, because you see the little dent right there at where it's attached to the cob. There's that little dent. I know you can't see in the camera, but there's that little dent. You know what I'm talking about. And it's called dent corn, whereas popcorn doesn't have that. Popcorn is more compressed and compact, and that's why it pops when you heat it. And so there's not as much, it's not as big a kernel. So everything inside that is the white flour portion of the corn. So there's not as much of that in popcorn. So you'll get a lot grittier corn. You'll get cornmeal if you grind popcorn. Okay? So that is 3 cups. I need just a cup and a half more. Sorry about that. But you got to see me grind corn. And I have a mill lid canister that is very tight. There we go. But you always want to hear that sound, right? If you don't hear that snap, it's not on. You're going to have flour all over the kitchen. Exactly. So I need, what did I say, a cup and a half? A cup of grain. Most all grains makes about a cup and a half of flour. So I'm going to mill a cup of corn, and that should give me right at the cup and a half. Turn it back to the coarser setting. But we do sell organic, and we don't sell non-organic corn, because corn is a heavily genetically modified grain. So we sell only organic, or this one that is certified non-organic. I mean, yes, not certified non-GMO. Clear. Say it again. The shelf life of corn and wheat should be the same. Corn oftentimes has a lot of moisture, and if it's not good and dry, a problem with corn can be molding. But it should store if it's really, really good and dry. But we haven't had too much problem in the last few years. A supplier we used to get was grown, can't remember where, and it was more southern, and the corn had a little bit higher moisture content. So. Look at that. A little bit more than a cup and a half. Yes. The question is, can you run popcorn through your grain mill? The Wonder Mill you can. The Nutri-Mill you cannot. Is it you can't do field corn? One of them you can't. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But the Wonder Mill.
The Nutri-Mill does not handle the large dent corn very well.
Right.
Because it's so large, whereas it will grind the popcorn just fine. But the Wonder Mill will grind both equally fine.
Okay, did y'all hear that? Yeah, so the Nutri-Mill, the dent corn won't go in the feed because it's bigger. So you have to use popcorn. You know what? I didn't set the timer I said it, but I didn't push the start button. And I kept smelling something, and I'm going to check that. There's a lot of smells going on up here. Got chili and that and bread, so let's see what this is doing. I have no idea how long it's been in there. But we're going to pray. Woo, look how beautiful. Do y'all remember the little tiny balls of dough that went in there? That's what the cloche will do. Yeah. I don't think this is at all ready. I'm going to pop it back in for like 5 minutes, then I'll check the temperature. It's so delicate, and I don't think it's near done, that if I check the internal temperature now, I'm afraid it'll deflate it. So I'm just going to pop it back in for, I'm going to set the timer. I'm going to clear what's here, and then set it for 5 minutes. All right, I'm pushing the start button. There we go. I'm going to pop this back in. Then we'll check it. And now it's done its job, so I'm going to leave the lid off. The lid has done its thing. How beautiful risen is that, though? I think you're going to love this bread.
So I did a bit of research on Mexican chili powder.
Okay, thank you,
And
Ashley.
the difference between Mexican chili powder and regular chili powder is that Mexican chili powder typically also has cayenne pepper. So it is going to typically be hotter than just your regular plain old chili powder.
It uses what kind of pepper?
Cayenne.
Cayenne,
They add
okay.
cayenne. So it's a
That's-
hot Mexican chili powder is typically how it's labeled with, and there are multiple brands out there.
And that's what I thought, is that the Mexican was going to be hotter. So I'm doubling this. So I'm doubling the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt. I keep shaking this because I keep smelling like it's, all right. So you always want to whisk your dry ingredients in. So we did 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, because I'm doubling this, I'm going to mix my wet ingredients in a separate bowl just to make sure I get them all mixed in. So I'm going to do 2 eggs. The single recipe calls for 1. And this is the basic muffin in my red cookbook, in my essential home ground flour book, but I did put the recipe there for you. It's going to be 2 cups of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can always use or you have dairy. Well, it's not going to help you with dairy allergies because we're fixing to load it with cheese. But if you don't have buttermilk and you just have regular milk, the secret is for every cup of milk, you're going to add a tablespoon of some kind of acid. It can be lemon juice, it can be vinegar. You can use distilled, you can use apple cider, or you can use one of our infused vinegars. Now I'm going to do the oil and honey. You can use almond milk, yeah, sure. But like I said, for this recipe, if you're dairy-free, you're out of luck because we're fixing to put cheese in there. But, or you just leave the cheese out. This is a recipe that I kind of came up with. I know you've probably heard my story. I think I did chili one night for dinner, was going to make cornbread, but something happened, who knows what. And chili was ready, we were ready for dinner, and I hadn't made the cornbread. And you know, cornbread takes 45 minutes to bake. And I was like, that's not going to work. What if I take my basic muffin recipe and just make it out of corn flour? So I started there, got everything ready, and I was like, ooh, you know, I add a cup of frozen blueberries to my regular muffins. What if I add a cup of frozen whole kernel corn to this? So I did that, and then I'm like, ooh, I think this would be really good if I put in some hot pepper jack cheese. So that's how this recipe came to be. Now, I like to cut the honey in half here. And you really don't have to alter the recipe any real way because that corn's going to have some liquid and make up for the liquid that I've cut out. But if you like sweet cornbread, go ahead. And a lot of times I make this muffin recipe so much so often I completely forget because it's just like doing it in my sleep. Half cup oil, half cup of honey, and it's dumped in before I think about it. I actually just thought about it, shocker considering the things that I haven't thought about for this class. And so I did cut the honey back, and I use a sweeter, milder honey. So I did use clover here. Corn is so mild in flavor, and the bakery honey is a little strong, and it would kind of overpower it. With quick breads like muffins and coffee cake and pancakes and cakes, you don't want to overmix. And so that's why I added, for the double recipe, I mixed up the ingredients in a separate bowl so that I wouldn't overmix. If I'm just doing a single, I just dump them. I make a well. Did you see that? I mix my dry ingredients and kind of scoot it all to the side and make a little well in the center, and I just drop them right in that center. Also, my corn flour is a little more moist than wheat flour, so that's why cutting back that honey doesn't make that big a difference. And if you think it's a little too loose, then you could add a little bit extra, but I think, again, don't go adding extra flour if this batter looks real loose at this point. By the time you get your pans ready and your oven preheated, it's already, look how it's already thickened up from the time I started stirring. I'm gonna grab, whoa, I got timers going everywhere. That is my spicy lentil and barley. It's done, and thankfully the induction burners have a timer and they turn itself off. So it can just sit back there and the pressure can come down. Our chili is up to pressure, so I'm gonna reduce the heat to maintain. And then I'm gonna just cook this. I'm gonna just do 3 minutes, maybe 4. We'll do 4. It says 5, I think, doesn't it? I'm gonna do 4 because I'm gonna let it naturally release. Come on. And that's something that you can think about. If you're gonna let it naturally release, you can come off that cooking time a little bit. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. The best way to tell if your bread is done, instant read thermometer. Well, I just got a new one, and that one was kind of tough to take out. You want the internal temperature to be somewhere between 180 to 200, so 190 is kind of what I shoot for. I'm just going to stick this in. It's about 172, so it's not quite there. So I'm going to go back in for just about 5 more minutes. I'm going to set the timer and I push start. All right, let's finish up our muffins here. And this should be pretty close to 2 cups of whole kernel corn. Oh my goodness gracious. We're good there. I'm going to set that for 2 more minutes. And I take it right out of the freezer most times and just, I thought this was 2 cups, and just throw it right in. You can, but if I think about it, I'll take it out of the freezer. If I don't, I just take it and put cold right in there. Yes? Yes, the Ankeshroom grain mill attachment does make excellent cornmeal and coarse ground grits. All right, that was an, so the regular recipe is an 8-ounce package of hot pepper jack cheese. And so I doubled it, so that was 2. Look at this. And this makes a little more than a dozen muffins because we've increased the volume here. And we could do mini muffins, but I'm going to do my pans that I really, 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 really love, even though my wonderful helpers don't love me as much to use this because then they got to cut them. They like mini, so they can just serve y'all a little mini. But I love this muffin or this little loaf pan. It's the perfect size for one serving, kind of, to go with this meal. So you're not going to get the whole muffin, but. All right, so this looks delicious. Looks a little stiffer than most muffin batters, but like I said, that corn's going to give off some moisture while it's baking. Now, these are USA pans, so they require no oiling. And these little loaves take about two scoops per pan, per little loaf there. And I am going to let y'all finish up here scooping. And should you need more, I'll give you a regular muffin pan. Okay, how about that? These are going to bake at 400, 15, maybe 20 minutes. Because of the extra moisture of the corn, it may take a little more time. And those are going to go in this oven because it's at 400 degrees. All right, our chili that we finally made is ready to just sit off the burner, or you can just leave. This one turns itself off, but so if you have a burner that you can just turn it off, let it sit there, and it's ready. So the cool thing about this chili or pressure cookers, this will be hot, servable, hot for hours. So you can just, if you're going to dinner tonight or potluck or something, or you got people coming, you could get this making and just let it sit there, and it's going to be plenty hot by game time. All right? Yeah. I made this for the Bulldog game, the national championship. Go Dogs. Yep. Yep, you knew it was coming. I almost wore my red and black today, but I have a scarf, and I was like, nah, that's a little, that might get in the way. That was one of the most exciting games. Except about 2 minutes before it got exciting, we were like, this game is really boring and it's not looking good. And then all of a sudden, boom, and if y'all don't know what we're talking about, I'm sorry. Y'all missed it. It was amazing. The Bulldogs won, in case you don't know. All right, let's see what our bread looks like. All righty, there's our little loaves. Whoop, there we go. How is that? We'll let them cool. I feel like the loaves and fish, except I need 2 more loaves, don't I? It was 5 loaves and 2 fish one time, right? Yep. All right, we'll let those cool, and we will go on with our next thing. All right, I got timers everywhere. Hold on. I think I need a timer person, you know, just someone, kind of like the belt puller that Kirby Smart has. Those of you that don't watch football, do y'all know what I'm talking about? The guy that just pulls Kirby off the field between plays where he gets so excited. He literally has a man that pulls him back, just follows him around like this, grabs his belt, pulls him in so he won't get caught on the field. I think it's hilarious. Yep, there we go. There we go. Is that good? Yep. Uh-huh. Hold on. There we go. Yes. Yep. For dough rising, newer ovens like mine, I have a proofer oven down here that set at 100, 110 is as hot as it'll go. Does a great job of just putting it in there. My oven at home, not so new. In 2 words, I can tell you how old my oven is. Harvest Gold. Okay? It's a wall unit, and so here's what I do. The lowest setting that I can turn it to is warm, and that's 225. Way too hot to rise your bread. That'll kill the yeast. So when I'm shaping the loaves, what I'll do is turn it on that lowest setting, let it warm, and then when I'm almost done shaping the loaves, I turn it off. And then I open the door, and a lot of times I'll just put it right in front for a few minutes, and then maybe put it inside the oven and shut it. Pan of warm water in there helps also. Remember, yeast, I was going to say wheat. Yeast likes warm and moist, okay? Some people have they'll put it in their laundry room where it's warm if you're, doing laundry. But that's my tricks, is to do that. It'll just take long time to rise. Now, if you put it in an oven to rise, set a timer. You do not want to forget it. Because if it over-rises when you've shaped it, after you've shaped it, when you go to bake it, it could collapse. You want it, so just set it. And maybe what I usually do, especially if if I put it in a warm oven to rise, I'll set it for only like 15 minutes, take it out, and it's warmed the dough, and it'll finish rising while I preheat my oven. Okay, does that help? Set a timer, because I'll tell you what happened to me yesterday. I made bread for Brad to take on the road. He left this morning for the Florida deliveries, and I was really pressed for time. I did it while I was prepping, in the middle of prepping for class and everything. And I finally got the dough made, and I'd already made a mistake with that and dumped the other ingredients in because I was just real distracted. And so I got it, shaped the rolls, and he wanted rolls because that's easier for him to eat on the road. And it was orange cinnamon cranberry bread. So I popped them in the oven to rise because I had just baked the croutons that you're going to have in a minute, and didn't set a timer. I remembered them when I got home last night at 7:30. No, they weren't baked. They were rising, way overrisen. I did bake them this morning when I came in because I was like, what the heck? I'll just bake them. If they're terrible, then I'll throw them away. Why throw all this away? So we'll see but out of sight, out of mind. And it's funny, as we left, I even looked and I'm like, oh, I turned off all the ovens. Yeah. Never thought another thing about those rolls being in the oven. I cried and he cried even more. He didn't cry, but he was really sad because he was looking forward to that bread. So, all right, so here's our jalapeno cheddar. And I think y'all need to eat. So I'm going to bring up the spicy lentil and barley soup. We're going to finish it and let y'all eat it with is that right? The jalapeno cheddar goes with that. And these will lift right out. They're kind of hot, so I'm going to let them take it. See, they don't stick at all, so they'll just come right out of here. All right, but I'm going to let them do that over there instead of doing it here and then having to pass it off. All right, ladies. This is very hot. And you might just let them cool for a few minutes. It's going to take me a few minutes to finish the spicy lentil and barley soup. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay, so here's my spicy lentil and barley soup. It's not quite, the pressure's not quite all the way out. So because I'm ready to use it or to deal with it, I'm going to quick release that pressure. So I'm just going to, it's very heavy. So I'm just going to, actually, you know what, I'm going to do this a different way. I'm doing everything. I thought Saturday's class I was discombobulated. I'm really discombobulated today. It doesn't matter how many times I do class, always nervous, and especially when they tell me we're live streaming or videotaping. I just go crazy. So sorry for you online viewers if y'all don't get to, if you're like, she's nutty. That is true, but that's why you keep coming back. You're like, this is the best entertainment ever. Hey, and when I go home and I'm like, that was terrible. Everything, I'm like, at least you ate. So you did get food, right? We can say that. Still got a little pressure. The lid will not open if there's still pressure in there. If you try to open it with pressure still there, it will let off steam. And so this is a way of quick releasing your pressure. You can just take it to the sink, run some cold water over the edge of the pot. You don't want to cover it because then it'll go inside. And that will bring the rest of that pressure down. It's getting close. Getting close. Is this the one I switched to the 10 liter? Yeah. And so this has cans of black beans added now. And again, look at me multitasking. I cook them ahead of time, so we'll just add the black beans to the soup. Yay, it's done. Golly, this is heavy. I think they're getting this soup tonight for for soup night at church, because I don't think y'all are going to eat this much soup. Always when you open the lid, like any pot, it's hot, so open it away from you. Okay. So we want to lift that chicken out. I forgot about the chicken being in there. Uh-oh. Sorry, Ashley. So much for that clang. Sorry, online viewers. Ashley told me that the clangs, when I like shut the drawer and everything goes bang, that it's much louder on my microphone because my microphone picks it all up. So I was trying to be so careful, and I was doing better with that until I just clanged the dishes. So we're just going to get this chicken out and shred it up. I don't remember how many pieces it was. I think it was 8. Yum, this is delicious. I've also now gotten my class order papers just all out of order. I had them all neatly in order. There we go. So here's our black beans. So we're going to add them. And I did double this, so we'll do about 3 cups. And drain. This one doesn't say to drain, but I'm going to drain most of the liquid off. You can see this is plenty hot. Okay. Now we're going to add salsa. I've never used this salsa, but I found it at the store and I needed salsa, so I grabbed it. And it's more than I need. Interesting, this recipe does not call for salt. I think because the salsa has salt in it, and and your turkey sausage has salt in it, you just don't need it. But you can always taste it here, but I don't go, ooh, maybe the salt is missing. Just go ahead and make it without it. And I'm one of those that likes the salt while I'm cooking. So just make it without it first. You can add salt here if you need it. All right, I'm going to make sure I got everything in there because, yep, okay. We're going to heat this up just slightly, which it's still pretty hot. And then now we're going to add the spinach. Oh, renegade. And I never add as much spinach as the recipe says. I think you just get carried away with spinach. But I do like to tear it up in a little bit smaller pieces. And you just add this right at the end here, and it's going to just wilt. be delicious. Y'all ready for some soup and bread? The bread took longer making than I thought. I really had only planned for that to take like 30 minutes. And it took almost an hour in the beginning. All righty. Did you enjoy the Haitian oatmeal? What, I mean, you could do that for dessert. I mean, that just to me tastes like almost like a custard, you know, vanilla custard. Was there tons left over? No? Okay, okay. Did you liked it too. Melanie said, ooh, that oatmeal is good. And if you see the directions, it really, if you weren't doing a 10-liter pot like I did this morning for y'all, it comes together really fast. You blend the oats and the water in a blender, so it's very smooth. That's why it wasn't chunky. And then you get the pot hot and pour that in there and that mixture, and then and it thickens right up, and then you add your sweetener and your spices. And I did use the star anise, and I let it, I steeped it in the milk before I added the milk. And I actually did that yesterday. All right, I'm going to add a tiny bit more spinach, because this is a big pot of soup. Whoops, am I losing my spoon there? All right. Okay, there you go. And now we add our chicken back. And it's so tender I can pretty much just kind of chop it with my spatula, but I'm going to get my food chopper and chop it the rest of the way up. I'd just use my hands if it weren't so hot, but you can also, the Anchorage Room double whisk bowl, the whipping bowl with just the single whips will shred chicken very nicely. Just 2 or 3 at a time. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give it a taste to make sure it's good with no salt. This is a very hearty, with the black beans, the chicken, the sausage, the lentils. Very, very hearty soup. Hello. That's your timer? Yep. And here's the bread knife if you want it. There you go. I'm going to do just a tad bit of salt. And I actually think it needs more salsa. I don't think this is as salsa-y tasting as the brands I usually use. Alrighty. And you do have salt and pepper on your table, so I don't want to put too much salt you can salt it to your liking. Melanie, can I get you to come grab this? What I love about the Fissler pressure cookers is the handle on the front and the back, because when you're picking up a heavy pot, that makes a big difference. Okay, well, we got the hard stuff. I think we can get the rest of everything done pretty quickly. I know you're like, we're never going to get out of here. She's got a bunch of stuff still to make. Everything else is pretty fast. Let's clean up a bit. So I want to start the beef and barley soup for you, because that's going to take about 20 minutes to cook, but then the broccoli cheddar is really, really fast. So we'll get the beef and barley soup going. And this is the one that I threw together the other night for Brad and I. Just made it up as I went. Okay, that's still got some pressure in it. Okay. For this soup, because it was mushroom, this is the way I made it. So I've not tried it with just regular olive oil. But our new flavor this last quarter, the end of the year, was the wild mushroom and sage infused olive oil. This is delicious. So this soup, I've only tried it this way. And I hope I remember everything that I did. I had to kind of go, what did I do the other night when I was just throwing, never intending that I was going to put it in this class, but it was so delicious that here it is. So I just, a couple of tablespoons of this wild mushroom and sage olive oil. And what we're going to do, we're going to serve this with the crusty French bread, and I'm actually going to drizzle some of this oil on your pieces of bread. So. I had so many big dishes of stuff I didn't have room to put it all back behind me. Now for this, I started out, I was going to make French onion soup, okay? So that was my first thought. And so for French onion soup, you want to saute your onions, and I kind of sliced them more because I was, like I said, started out with French onion soup. But you want to cook your onions till they're very soft and translucent here if you're doing French onion soup, but you don't want them to brown, okay? So we just want to get these onions soft. So I did let them cook a little bit more on my heat before I added other ingredients. And Brad felt like with all the mushrooms in it, that it hardly needed the beef at all. I think you could even cut back, I put a half a pound, and he even thought that it didn't even need that much because of all the mushrooms that were in it. And so this is a great meat extender. Of course, I don't know what's cheaper, meat or the mushroom. Well, probably the mushrooms at this stage of the game. Have y'all checked out meat prices? Oh my goodness gracious. And butter, I paid $8.40 for a pound of butter the other day. Wow. It was organic, which I usually buy organic dairy. So. All right, and like I said, for this dish, for this soup, I did use Olivelli products, and that's the only way I've made it. So besides the mushroom sage oil, I'm going to use the black garlic shiitake rub, and for the salt, I'm using the black truffle infused salt. Okay, really giving it that mushroom flavor. Of course, look at all the mushrooms. I think I'm going to smell like onions tonight at church. What do you think? Huh? As long as I bring the soup. And I have cheesecake left over from Saturday's class, so I told them we are getting cheesecake. You like it? It's just different. It's a little different from most soups served, and it's got just layers and layers and layers of flavor. Okay. If I remember correctly, I did 1 or 2 tablespoons of the black shiitake, the black garlic shiitake rub. So I'm just going to do 2 tablespoons here, because this is basically, actually I think this is a triple recipe. Now we'll put in the meat. And thankfully the mushrooms cook down a little bit. And the barley. I did 3/4 of a cup of barley the other night, but I really felt like a half a cup was plenty. And also know that if you make this recipe the day ahead, the barley is going to really absorb more liquids because of all the fiber there. So you might need to just thin it with a little more beef broth or something if you make it ahead or serve the leftovers. Brad really loved the leftovers the next day. So you can see this is pretty much it. Very easy to put together. I am using just a half a cup of barley today for the recipe. And again, adding those spices to the oils and just browning them and the meat before I put all the liquid in. We actually had it with grilled cheese. All right. I really love the black garlic shiitake rub. I've added it to meatloaf, and it just really brings out a savory, rich flavor. How y'all like it? And how do you like the jalapeno cheddar bread? All right. And it looks like they've got the little corn muffins are out. And so as soon as we get this put back to the back, we'll serve the chili next. Sorry y'all went so long between. I had it planned a little different, but the bread took a little longer than I had planned. So y'all were supposed to be eating at 11:30, and here it is 12:30. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the back burner, let that pressure come up. It'll take about 20 minutes to get the meat, and mostly we're getting that barley done. Lock the lid into place, put it back here. And Ashley, I'm actually going to change burners. This one makes a hum. I'm going to see if the other one doesn't make quite that noise. Yum, yum, yum. Oh, before we do that, y'all got that all served? I'm going to go ahead and open the chili, show you that, and let that be getting served as well. Whoop, still got some pressure. right, well, I'll just set it aside and let it take a few more minutes and go ahead and get the broccoli soup done. All right. Once again, we have onions. I don't know where I found this recipe, but it so intrigued me that it has white potatoes and sweet potatoes in it. And the sweet potatoes give it this beautiful orange color, which really adds to the color of the cheddar broccoli soup, and just gives it a thickness and a creaminess that's just so, so nice. And I think for this one, I just used the regular olive oil. And the trick of preparing your potatoes ahead is to cover them with water. You can either refrigerate them, or if you're going to use them later, just that will keep them from turning dark. The sweet potatoes don't turn dark as readily as the white potatoes. So this has celery and onion. And this we're just going to do a single recipe because I've actually already done a single ahead of time for you. Yes. Say it. Okay. This is a 6-liter. So this is an 8-liter pressure cooker, and this is a 6-liter. You'll notice these are tall pots, and that's what's called a stock pot, as opposed to a more shallow pot. And again, with pressure cooking, I don't think it's quite as critical to saute your onions and your celery and that as much. The pressure cooker is going to really get them done here. I'm going to go in and ahead and dump in my potatoes. This is 2 pounds of white potatoes and 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. Now, I normally really like to leave the skins on, but sometimes the russet potatoes, the skins are really, really tough. They weren't so bad yesterday, but this is a really creamy soup. So I don't want a lot of skins there, but that is where your nutrients is in the skin. So what I kind of just sloppy peeled them, just kind of left some peel, but got the tough spots out of there. So I'm going to add my broth. Nope, this is the broccoli. The beef and mushroom was the one we did just a minute ago. Lay the bay leaves in there. 2 teaspoons of Redmond salt. And I can already tell I'm going to need the, hey darling, the bigger pressure cooker when I add all the other ingredients to this. This does get some water, and I forgot the water this morning, so I actually added it after it was cooked. It didn't need the liquid to cook. So it gets 4 cups of water and 4 cups of chicken broth. Add a little pepper. Look how easy. This is so easy. It's just so easy. The biscuits are done about the time the soup is, which is only going to take about 15 minutes. All right, let's make sure we got everything in there. Onion, celery, chicken broth, potatoes, sweet potatoes, bay leaf, water, salt, pepper. Everything else is going to come on afterwards. Okay, I'm going to scoot this guy over and let it come up to pressure on high heat. Now, I'm going to make, to go with this soup, when I have a fast soup like this, I usually either have bread already made that I'm going to serve it with, or fast, something fast, muffins or drop biscuits. And I'm just going to tell you, the drop biscuit recipe in my red cookbook that's been there for years, it's on page 41, one of the easiest recipes in the whole book. Flour, baking powder, salt, oil, milk, and then you make them whatever you want to make them. Again, like the muffins, you can add herbs, you can add cinnamon, nutmeg, make them sweet, you can make them savory, whatever you want to do. Today, we're going to make them savory. We're going to do dill and feta cheese. Just add it right there to the drop biscuits. So the recipe is in your handout. All right, let's see if this chili's ready, because they're ready with the corn muffins. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, a drop biscuit is not flaky like a a regular biscuit. So, all right. So normally, like I said, I would have chopped these sweet potatoes a little smaller. So that's why I'm kind of mashing them a little bit, because really, if you chop them small, you hardly even notice that they're there. But my prepper helper, I was so grateful for, had them all chopped and ready. I was not going to make her go back and chop them small. Of course, I could have done it, but I didn't notice till this morning that they were bigger than I had originally planned. But isn't that delicious looking? You could serve this with cheese if you want. We're going to put a little dollop of drained yogurt on top to act like sour cream. Anybody not want the yogurt on yours? One back there. Okay, got it? Just one. All righty. Here it is, ladies. Put that right there. There you go. So we're going to serve the chili with the corn cheddar muffins. All right? We're going to wait on our broccoli cheddar soup to come up, but while we're waiting, we're going to make our dill and herb biscuits, or dill and feta biscuits. So this, I did mill the soft wheat here. Okay, so yesterday I was like, all right, this is a simple recipe, just has baking powder, oil, and no cutting in the butter, so we're just going to use oil and milk. So very easy. But I was like, I think I can really spruce this up a little bit. So I went out and I pulled some of our dill-infused olive oil. I think that's going to make this like over the top. I've never tried it, so y'all are going to be the guinea pigs today. I don't think it'll be awful. I think it will only be better. So anyway, my kids always growing up, they were like, Mom, why do you try things for company, when company's coming? I don't know. I think you just get creative. And I do the same thing in class, and I've only had a few things that kind of went, oh, no, that didn't work. But I think this is going to work just fine. I need a cutting board. And we have a dill salt. Did I use the cumin spice salt in something? I meant to. knife. Alrighty. Easy, easy, easy recipe. So I'm doubling it, so you'll have plenty of biscuits. So 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to go a little light because I am using feta and it's a little salty. So I'm just going to take it a little easy there on the salt. Whisk this into all the dry ingredients together. The dill infused olive oil. I could have pulled that spout out, but yes. It heated. The question is, can I make the cornbread ahead? I find muffins and quick breads are really better the day hot out of the oven, but we have had them, and what I typically do is warm them somehow. A lot of times I'll slice them and toast them, and that way they're really good. So this just gets the oil and milk. And that would be it if we were not going to spruce this up with some herbs and cheese. So I'm just going to give it a stir. See how easy that, that would be just drop it on a pan and it bakes in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, I did use soft wheat here, so I might need a little extra flour, but I'm going to wait until after I add my cheese and see how they look. So I'm going to add 2 cups of feta. And normally at home, I cook these on a baking stone. I have the stone getting hot while I'm getting these ready. And then I just open the oven, drop, 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 right on the hot stone. But since I don't want to turn around and drop 40 biscuits on a hot stone with my back to you, I'm just going to do them on a baking sheet. But I really love the way they come out on the hot stone. And those are by Emile Henry that we have. And I should have chopped this ahead of class. But y'all are okay, right? What time? Oh, we're doing all right. I knew the last 2 soups were going to be a lot easier. There's nothing like fresh dill. We got really turned on to dill when we were in Latvia adopting our first son. They use a lot of dill there, in potatoes, in bread, and just everywhere. And oh man, we got so used to it, and it was just so delicious that I use it a lot of places now. And I don't really measure tablespoons or whatever. I just chop until it looks like what I want. One thing you want to, if you're converting one of your favorite recipes that's a white flour recipe, wow, there was a whole lot more dill in this package than the first one. Remember that even soft wheat and white wheat, even though it's pretty bland, it still has more flavor than white flour. So if you're converting a white flour recipe, especially ones that have cinnamon or, herbs and spices in it, remember you may have to double those herbs and spices to get the flavor, okay? Because like I said, even with white wheat that's not very flavorful, it's still so much more flavorful than white flour. So that's what I found, especially Christmas cookies and things like that, or herbs. You're like, I don't quite taste that. Just know that you're going to have to add a little extra to compensate for the flavor of the flour. All right, I think that's enough dill. So how I chop my herbs, get rid of this. I just bring them together in a pile. And I don't completely like take every stem off of the dill. Like that was a pretty tough stem, so I pulled it off a little bit, but I don't worry about too much. The stem's going to have flavor too. So I just kind of get it in a tight pile and I chop. Might have been the chili I left the salt out of, and I should have tasted it, so y'all might need to taste. Is it good? I am glad I added that extra can, so you might make a note of that. I actually think it takes 2 cans there, and that might be a typo on my part, because I remember the last couple of times I made it, I'm like, this needs more sauce, and I added another can. So might have been my oversight from the original. Okay, so that is nice and chopped. We'll add this to the biscuit dough. Oh yeah, do y'all see, I know you can't tell too much, but I don't know if you could tell from where you're sitting and in the overhead how loose the dough was when I first started mixing it. And even without mixing in the cheese, it's plenty stiff. So I'm glad I didn't add any extra flour. With whole grains and milling your own, you know, the wheat crop changes from crop to crop. So you have to kind of still know your feel of your dough and know your, you know, your batter, what it's supposed to look like. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to taste these. Not like I haven't had them before, but I think that dill oil is just going to be so delicious. Okay. And like I said, normally I just preheat my stone with my oven, pull it out, drop, 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 drop really fast with a scoop. I'm going to use a smaller scoop today. So these are probably going to bake in probably 8 minutes as opposed to 10 or 15. The cheese makes it take a little bit longer. How y'all doing? Got the chili and the cornbread? Be careful, don't burn your mouth. The chili's probably still hot. Yep. All right. Melanie, I'm going to pass this off to you and let you keep scooping. And then they're going to bake. And I would set the timer for 8 minutes and check them because I'm doing them kind of small. Here you go, madam. And they don't spread a lot, so I think you can even stuff in another row there. Okay? There you go, madam. I need to give you another. Or there's some cookie sheets right down there you can use too. All right, our broccoli soup is coming up. I'm going to wash my hands. What is this back here? Beef and barley. All right. Is that the broccoli soup there, heating right there, or is that the chili? Okay. I am actually going to pull up the other burner and go ahead and be getting the broccoli soup ready. That's okay. Just bring me the broccoli soup. And I'll just finish it up here, and we can go on and serve it in a minute. You never know exactly how long it's going to take things to come up to pressure and whatever. So this is the broccoli cheddar soup that I actually made right before class, and I went on and pureed it in the pot with an immersion blender, and I'll show you that when this one comes up. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this one, and we can start eating it here shortly too. So this is, if y'all want to go back to the broccoli cheddar soup. So what we're going to do now is we're going to heat it back up. And we're going to stir in. Look how nice and pretty and smooth it is. I used an immersion blender. Do y'all know what that is? Where I just blended it right here in the pot. If you don't have that and you're going to transfer it to a blender to puree, you will probably need to do it in batches. And just remember to loosen that little knob there so you can let some steam out so it doesn't explode on you. So you just want to do that. But look how beautiful and creamy and smooth and delicious that is. Shelly, you want to hand me the cheese and the half and half there? There? Yep. So between the chili and the spicy lentil soup, which one's your favorite? Or you like them both? You like them both? Very different, though, because at first I was like, ooh, that spicy lentil is kind of chili-ish. It's not really. It's like a souped-up chicken soup, or I don't know. There's nothing like it. And like I said, when I had it, it was like, wow, this soup is so good. And it became a favorite for a long time. And that's why when I was getting ready for this class, I was like, didn't really have any new soups. I bought I pulled out my soup magazines, and I'm like, nothing really. And I'm like, you know what? And I remembered the spicy lentil soup, so I pulled out my soup folder, and I found all these. We almost did 10 soups, and I'm like, nope, can't do that. Because, you get in a rut. Like the cheeseburger soup, I don't know if any of y'all have had that I've done in class before. That became a huge hit and family favorite, and I did that for a long, long time. But like I said, I'd almost forgotten about the spicy lentil and barley soup. All right, so our broccoli is up. This is the broccoli soup. So I'm going to just turn the heat down to medium-low and just pressure it 3 minutes. Like I said, this soup is so fast to make. And now we're going to add our half and half. We're getting close here on this pot. Thankfully, we're only heating it. I'm sorry, what? Could you substitute almond milk? I think you certainly could. It's yours. Yeah. Of course, it is broccoli and cheese, so I'm not sure, Yeah, it adds a creaminess. There we go. I actually think the bottom oven is hotter, but I think that's 400. It'll still cook them. The bottom oven was 425, but it's all right. You want to? They'll get done faster. And then I'm going to wash my hands and hand you these French loaves, and you can go ahead and be slicing those. Sorry about that. Now, the thing about your French loaves, they are crusty. You can tell. They're crusty on the outside. The thing is, commercial baking these French loaves is very different, and it really makes a very crunchy, hard crust that stays that way. And I think that's why also they don't usually put French loaves in plastic. You'll usually see them in a paper sleeve. So if you store these in a plastic bag, the crust is going to soften because it still sweats. Even though they're completely cool, there's still moisture in there. So just know that. But it was still pretty good yesterday after I finished, or I actually made them Monday night at home, and they were still pretty crunchy yesterday when I tried them. Here you go, my dear. And I'm going to give you the mushroom oil. Or did I already give you that? Did I give you the mushroom sage oil? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for the wrong type bottle. I thought it was in the, mine at home is in the slender bottle. I don't know what became of my broccoli. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, online viewers. Y'all are like, she is an idiot. She is a basket case. Saturday's class went so well. Today's class, not so much. Like, where in the heck is my broccoli? So to steam broccoli, I learned a trick from Lars Liebisch, the German chef that's been here a couple of times to do classes for us. He says, really, to steam broccoli, just put a little bit of water in the bottom of the pot. Put your broccoli in. As soon as it comes up to boil, just turn it off. And in just a short time, it'll still be nice and not too done. Whereas if you steam it and steam it and steam it, you might get it overdone. So that's what I did with the broccoli, and I did it ahead of class. So I'm just going to take half of this and put it in our soup. Don't want the water. Because I steamed it for both batches of soup. So that's why I'm just doing half. Okay. A little bit more. I'm not sure that this is going to hold all of this cheese. I might have to move it to a bigger pot. Should I try? Isn't that really just so pretty and creamy? And I bought medium cheddar by mistake. I think sharp, it's going to be fine, but sharp will give it a little sharper flavor. Imagine that. Well, I know I'm taking this soup because I think this is plenty for y'all to all get some. So that pot's going to church with me. Perfect. What time is church? 6 o'clock. We actually meet in someone's home for Wednesday night. I can give you the address if you want it. But I better not do it online because I don't think they have room for everybody that might show up. Okay, I'm just trying to get this hot again. I'm going to give a little taste. I'm going to add a little more broccoli. And you can cut the broccoli smaller or bigger, however you want. And, I think we actually have time. I'm going to do a little Valentine's treat for y'all. I made y'all a little dessert. And you're going to love this. All right, so this I'm going to taste. Because I think that's all the soups, right? We're just waiting on the beef and barley, but it's done. Yum, yum. I think it needs a little more salt. This makes a whole lot more than I thought. I just was like, this isn't very much. But then this morning, after I thought about it, I was like, that's 12 cups of liquid and potatoes. I'm like, that's a lot. Melanie, I'm going to let you get this just a little bit hotter over there. That's a lot of liquid. And I think if you want it even richer, I wouldn't put the water in there. I think I would just cook it with just the chicken broth, the 4 cups, and just leave the water out completely. I might have done that the last time I made it. Okay, I'm going to taste this again. Look at that cheesy goodness. I think the sharp cheddar would have added extra flavor. Okay, madam. Can you do this? I'll tell you what, I'll put the lid on. That way, should you fall, we save the soup.
Okay.
You know, if you break a leg, oh well. They'll just want the soup.
That's true.
But they know I have a backup. There you go. All right, so you've had the chili. We're waiting on the biscuits to have the broccoli and the cheddar soup. I'm going to kind of clean up my mess here. This recipe that I'm about to show you is not soup or bread. It's actually a candy, the Easy Toffee candy. I actually forgot about this recipe. I made it years ago, multiple times for several years. I just would make it every Christmas and Valentine's Day or whatever. And I decided the other day, since Valentine's Day is Monday, I was like, well, we need to do a little chocolatey dessert. You've had all these soups, so surely we need to do a little chocolatey dessert. So I'm going to make the Easy Toffee candy for you. It truly is very, 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 very easy. You want to get all your ingredients ready. So because you don't want to leave the pot while it's boiling. Okay, that's Melanie's timer. Okay, so what you're going to do is you want to butter the sides of this pot. Even though it's going to get hot and melt in there, you want to butter the sides of the pot so that the caramel or the toffee that we're cooking won't crystallize on the sides. So just butter those sides, even though you're like, oh, that's kind of dumb, but just do it, okay? Okay, so 2 sticks of butter. I didn't think I'd have time to do this, especially when we had 2 more soups and some bread to go at noon or even after 12:30. Okay, this pot is acting noisier than the other one. Hang on, I've got a fix for that. I'm getting rid of this guy. because my broccoli soup is ready to just set aside. There we go. Because this one doesn't make that whiny noise. All right. Back to melting our butter. Okay. Super, super, super easy. So just get your butter melted. It's a cup of butter. You don't want to burn your butter. And the hardest thing about this and the longest that it takes is just bringing it up to temperature, which I need to find. Here's my thermometer. Make sure you have everything ready before you start this, because it will scorch if you leave it without stirring it too much. That means you can't walk away and you have to stir it the whole time, but you just want to stay with it, not just leave it. Oh, I got to go find my sugar. Oh, I got to go find my whatever. So it's very, very easy. Just a cup of butter. Melt that butter. Now we're going to add our cup of honey granules. We're going to add the water, 3 tablespoons of water, and 1 tablespoon of agave. Pardon me? I wouldn't use honey. I mean, you can try it, but I don't think it's going to crystallize. You could try it, but I mean, if you don't want to use honey granules, white sugar. I mean, it was a white sugar recipe, so don't tell anyone I said that, but now the world knows. No, I mean, I use honey granules in place of white sugar, but I don't know that honey's going to crystallize here. And this is a treat. This is not something you're going to, well, if you have it around, you're going to eat it, just so you know. Don't forget, give you the croutons are going to go in the top of the broccoli cheddar soup. I think croutons make soups like that just over the top. The crouton recipe is in the red book, the recipe collection. And if you've never noticed that, it's back there at the Caesar salad. So, and I made the French bread that I made, I cut it up, and that's what I made the croutons out of. All right, so our mixture is boiling here. You want to just turn down the heat to just maintain that nice boil there, okay? And we're going to bring this up to 290 degrees. At about 270, 280, you really want to watch it because it may take a while to get there, and you think, oh, okay, I've got a while. No, once it gets to about 270, it goes to 290 like really fast. And if you take it over, it scorches and it burns. And that's called burnt caramel or burnt toffee. And if you like that sort of thing, go for it, but I don't. So this is so delicious. So easy, so fast, and it really makes a lot. It makes a whole panful here. We made enough for you guys to have a few pieces and to say Happy Valentine's Day. And get you ready. You'll make this, I'm pretty sure, this weekend for Valentine's Day. It's so delicious. It reminds me kind of a Heath bar, if you like Heath bar. The longest part is waiting for it to come up to that, and it's the hard candy. If you have a candy thermometer, it's that hard candy temperature is what you're taking it up to. Our instant read thermometer does go up to like 400 degrees, so it'll work. It's at 113. I will tell you, it will solidify on your thermometer, so just you might have to stick it in a little cup of water to liquefy again. So you're waiting on the broccoli cheddar soup, and we're waiting on the little biscuits. Any questions? Everybody good? Yeah? Y'all haven't fallen asleep yet? We did it. I mean, we're doing it. I'll be done in a minute. Yeah. Uh-huh. If you had a recipe that needed those onions caramelized, you mean, and then to go on, like French onion soup, you caramelize them, right? So you could still do them in the pressure cooker. You just want to keep them on a low heat. You keep cooking them. It actually takes 30 to 45 minutes to cook them so that they caramelize. And you could do it in a skillet if you want, but you can do it in I would do it in a bigger pan than, say, this one's. It depends on how many you're doing. Because you kind of want them kind of like caramelizing or roasting vegetables. You need to give them a little space. But they do take 30 to 45 minutes to caramelize. Well, I mean, you're not going to pressure them. You're not going to put the pressure lid on there. Yeah, no, you wouldn't do that. Okay, you can tell the change. Did you see what just happened? It's now very foamy looking. We're close. So I'm going to just tip this. Whoops, I got it on centigrade. The question is, does it make that much difference if they're yellow or white? It's really your call as flavor. Red is going to be a little more sharp, little hot, little more heat there. The flatter your onion, the sweeter the flavor. So that's why your Vidalias are usually flat instead of round. So that's going to give you a little sweeter flavor. But the red onions are going to be got a little heat to them. But I use them pretty interchangeably. I think they would have definitely added a flavor dynamic to the broccoli and cheddar soup that you would definitely taste. But I think in any of the other recipes, like for sure. Okay, see what this is looking like? It's pretty ready, I think. We're going to check it. Because if it goes any further, it might burn on the bottom. Nope, it's saying it's still 250. I'm going to turn the heat down so it doesn't, I don't want it to scorch. It's still plenty boiling. And if you make a lot, you will get this sticky stuff everywhere. Just scrape it up and eat it. It's delicious. You might have to soak this guy in water, but it'll melt. Okay, so, yep. And then we're going to add a little vanilla. Be careful here. My vanilla yesterday really splattered on me. I guess there's, enough water and alcohol there. Oh, I got it on centigrade again. It keeps. All right, it's at 260, 265. I mean, it's going fast now. It doesn't like me to lift it off the burner. It's a safety feature of the induction pot. 285. I think we're there. I'm going to check one more time. Now what are you doing? Okay, a little bit more. We're almost there. It doesn't help that this keeps turning off. So I keep wiping it off my thermometer, so. All right. I think we're good. Okay. One more minute, and I'm going for it. Kind of stand back, because there we go. That one didn't do it too much. Whoop, there we go. Okay. Now here is all you're going to do. Okay, I just kind of pour it right there in the center and let it just ooze caramel toffee goodness. And then what I do is quickly, I just kind of take it that way, take it this way. You want to do this fairly quickly because it's already hardening. And that way. And it won't fill up the whole pan. And now you just let this sit for just a few minutes to start firming up. And then we're just going to sprinkle the chocolate chips on top and just give them a few minutes. They will melt right there. You're going to make this, I can tell you. And I like to sprinkle it with some pecans on the chocolate. But since there's nut allergies, I didn't do it today because you just never know. And then at church, there's nut allergies, so I don't ever take nuts there. But it's really pretty to, when you get the chocolate chips melty, to go ahead and sprinkle the nuts on that. And then it'll all firm up. I had them go ahead and break it apart and get it ready for y'all today because I was afraid we would be I didn't think I would have time to show it. But you'll see it'll all harden up and just be really nice. You can stick it in the refrigerator if you want, if you're like ready to try it really fast. But I just left it here on the counter, and with no heat in the building last night, it got plenty cold when I came in. The chocolate was completely hardened. But I'll probably stick it in the fridge because I want to make sure it's completely hard, chocolate and everything. So now I'm going to just take my chocolate chips and just sprinkle over. Don't worry about going, like every single spot has to be covered because you're going to spread it. I do get these little strays and throw them back in there because we do need to have all the chocolatey goodness that we can. And just give it a few minutes. All right, so what are y'all having? The broccoli soup? Some of you got it yet? Yep, you're working on it. And it may need a little bit of salt. Not sure. How is it? Good? All right. Y'all are very quiet. The agave, I'm not totally sure. I think it helps it to harden even more. A lot of candies recipes will use corn syrup, and that gives it that real crunch. I think more so than just chewy. It gives it the crunch. And agave, you can use agave in any recipe that calls for corn syrup. Marshmallows. Y'all made marshmallows before? So fun. I'm not saying this is a super healthy candy and just eat it all day, but it's a nice little treat that you made. It's not full of chemicals and artificial flavors. Yes, hon? Mm-hmm. There, got a little heat. The croutons that are on the broccoli cheddar soup are in the red book, and it's right back here. There's a Caesar salad recipe in there that you maybe didn't know was back there because you just got stuck on the bread and muffins. So it's the Cajun, I use the Salt Sisters Cajun seasoning and olive oil and garlic, and just toss the breadcrumbs with that mixture, and then cooked them at 400 for, I did 15 minutes, and then I turn the oven off if they're still kind of chewy, and I like them really, really crunchy. So I just turned the oven off and just left them in there. But that's it. Yeah, and I use the French bread that you're having today with the beef and barley soup. And Melanie, if you want to take this beef and barley soup and bring it here to the sink and bring the pressure down for me, that would be great, and then it'll be ready to serve. It needs nothing else. All right, look at that. And these are the little Enjoy Life chocolate chips. They're dairy-free. Of course, you just put dairy in there. But now I would think if you have a vegetable butter, I think it would probably work here. But how cool is that? What's that? Nope, it is mine. Brad left for out of town today. Me in my bed and a Hallmark movie and this candy. I love Brad, but I love my little, I don't have to do dinner. No, I do miss him. He did say, he goes, well, you're going to be on vacation this week. I'm like, well, but isn't that pretty? No, I'm an early riser, so I usually get up and go to my little sofa where I have my little prayer time and reading time. So when Brad's gone, I pile all my books on his side of the bed, and I just read and then go back to sleep and turn on the light and turn off the light, and it's just kind of funny. Like I said, not that I miss him when he's gone, but every now and then it's kind of fun. Okay. All right, we're going to get this beef and barley soup. Did it come down? All right, and I'm going to let you. And so now I just set it aside. I will probably, since it's warm in here today, if I were going to leave this, you could leave it on the counter overnight. It'd be cool and hardened. That chocolate will get where it's hardened, okay? So I will probably stick this in the fridge, and because I want to go ahead and speed that up. All right, let's see what we got here. You want to sit it right here? Let me taste it. And I think we can turn all of these ovens off. I think we're done. Woo. Thank you, Melanie. You've had to go above and beyond. It took both of us. It takes a village, right? Or well, whatever. Yum, 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 yum. Okay, so this is going to be more soupy, but I kind of like it. If you had put the 3/4 of a cup of barley, it was more stewish. You know, it wasn't quite this liquidy. So, but I think this is going to be delicious. I'm going to taste because I really couldn't remember how much of that shiitake rub and salt I put in it the other night. Like I said, it was kind of like, I'm throwing it in. I even told Brad, I said, I made some soup. I have no idea what it's going to be like. I just started putting stuff in it. So, but it was so fast. It's really hot. I don't want to burn my mouth because I want that to taste delicious. If you don't know what I was pointing to, that candy. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to put just a bit more salt, just a bit, not a lot, just a tiny bit. Maybe didn't even need any at all. And I am going to put a little more shiitake rub, just a little, if I can find it. You know what? I think it's perfect. I don't know why the shiitake rub's not right here. Do y'all see it? Oh, well. No, I don't think so. It's okay. It actually is very delicious. I just thought maybe, oh, it fell on its side. There it is. Just a little. So maybe a tablespoon and a half for a recipe. And it has some salt in it, so that's why I didn't put a lot of salt in the recipe. Oh, wow. I think we're going to have this soup tonight, too. All righty, Melanie, you ready? Okay. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Well, I am going to close out the class, and I will walk over and actually help them serve this last soup. Thank you so, so very much for being here today and tolerating my little discombobulatedness of, anyway, thank you, online viewers. Oh, y'all are so sweet. I love what we do. We love helping you come alongside of you to eat real food on your journey to better health. And stay tuned. Monday, my podcast will be launching, so go to our website and look at that. First couple of episodes will be kind of light, but we'll get into more and more and more. So if you think, well, this isn't very much, just don't worry about it. It's coming. Poopy Talk's coming and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. But that'll start Monday, and then starting Monday, you will be hearing my voice on WSB. So we are going to start advertising on WSB. Yes. So I'm going down tomorrow to record that ad, and I know that they're hoping to schedule me to be on Belinda's show. So yeah, yep. Exciting things happening at Bread Becker's.